and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is 7 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of February. It's a mate of mine's birthday, actually, so I'm going to wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Craig. Well done to you. He's reached some great age, which we're going to celebrate tomorrow. Russell Quirk's here. Very nice to see you, Russell.
Morning.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah,
you know it's Tuesday when Russell Quirk's here. Looking very dapper, by the way.
Always,
very
mate.
nice to see you. We've got loads going on. We've got a poll out today. What is the most annoying family you can think of? Is it the Windsors? Effectively Sarah and Andrew. Is it the Kardashians, who are on the front page of The Sun again? Is it the Markles, or is it the Beckhams? You might not be surprised to hear that it's a bit close, actually, between the Markles and the Windsors. So Sarah and Andrew, the arsehole formerly known as Prince, as I call him, and now the Markles, i.e. Harry and Meghan. So we'll come to that. Loads and loads of pieces in the paper today, most of them about Lord Mandelson, or maybe soon not to be Lord Mandelson. Police look into Epstein leaks from Mandelson, says The Times. Mandelson reported to police, says the I newspaper. Labour's Dark Lord now faces a criminal inquiry, says the Daily Mail. Mandelson leaked emails to Epstein, says the Telegraph. And then this one particularly grabbed my interest. That picture of Lord Mandelson in his underpants. Do you know where it was taken? It was taken in a place known as the House of Sin.
This is, is it Epstein's French
yes,
apartment?
It's in Paris. But do you know which street it's in? Avenue Foch. I kid you not.
What?
F-O-C-H, Avenue Foch.
No, you literally couldn't make it up.
You could not make it up. We still don't know what he's doing there in his underpants, but I mean, it's a picture that would haunt him for the rest of his life. It's a bit like that one of Chris Bryant. Do you remember the Labour MP for South Wales?
In his underpants?
Who was pictured in his underpants,
yeah.
which was quite terrifying in
but
its
I think
way.
it was a selfie.
It
Chris
was a
Bryant,
selfie.
He actually took it of himself.
He took it himself because he put it on some gay dating website, right?
Yeah.
But what was more disturbing about the picture of Chris Bryant was what was on the shelf behind him.
What was that?
It was a variety of what can only be described as lubricants.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
But surely
I know it's too early. Sorry, I've been told off by Pooch already.
But surely to every gay guy on the planet, a picture of Chris Bryant in his underpants is enough to turn a gay guy straight.
You would think. You would think. Maybe he was doing a service. Anyway, that's enough of that sort of innuendo at this time of the morning. Terribly sorry about that. This Mandelson story, though, unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I was listening yesterday because I was out. I went off to Trigonometry Podcast in the afternoon, which is down in Kent, and I was driving back just as Darren Jones was making his statement in the House of Commons. And what a mealy-mouthed, sort of ridiculous statement it was. I think we've got it, which we'll play later. Where he's kind of, they're all sort of saying, oh, yeah, Lord Mandelson, what a terrible man. He should really give up his peerage. He should leave the House of Lords. These are the people who appointed him to be ambassador, one of the biggest and most important jobs in the history of British government to the United States of America.
So Starmer appointed him as ambassador to Washington, apparently against the best advice of his so-called advisors, who don't themselves normally cover themselves in glory, but this time they did call it right. And Starmer, of course, then decided to ignore them and appoint him anyway.
Yeah, right.
But this is a man as well. I mean, and clearly Starmer knew that there was a very bad smell around Mandelson, specifically around the whole Epstein thing, but he still appointed him. But this is also the man that previously has had to resign, stroke be sacked 3 times from government because of his indiscretions. I mean, he is, let's call it as it is, he's a dirty politician.
He is.
And a man that has such arrogance that you think he can do whatever he wants and, resign temporarily or be sacked temporarily, and then not only come back, but then commit another load of indiscretions and just get sacked or resign again. And it's kind of this revolving door of immorality, really, isn't it?
Well, it's how many chances does somebody need to be given where they continually come back and back and back? And I mean, the allegations that came out yesterday afternoon, which are about these emails that he's leaked, market-sensitive financial information, in real time, tipping off old Jeffrey Epstein that, the markets are about to be presented with a bailout plan to save the euro, 500 billion quid.
He tipped him off about Gordon Brown.
Tipped him off that Gordon Brown was going to resign the day before he resigned. And I mean, I know from my sister's dealings in the city, when she used to work in the city, the whole sort of financial market back in those days would revolve around political rumours. Like she would suddenly call me up one day and say, somebody's reporting that John Major's been shot dead. And I'll be like, that's rubbish.
But
that's
it's potentially...
But potentially the market moves on stuff like that.
Yes, so it's potentially, I mean, look, obviously it's an allegation right now, yet to be proven, but maybe it will be. It's insider trading, potentially. On the basis that, Jeffrey Epstein, apart from being a rancid paedophile, was also a financial trader. So, of course, giving him this information about the very heart of British government, and as you say, and how that moves markets. I mean, it was tantamount to giving him the heads up so that he could take positions in sterling, equities or whatever, with a view to making a profit. I mean, if that's proven, Mandelson goes to prison.
Well, surely that is a criminal offence, and you would think the police would be involved, and they now, I think Reform and I believe the Lib Dems as well have now reported Mandelson to the police. I mean, but he still hasn't stopped. He's given an interview to the Times online today, right, in which he describes himself as a sort of victim of what's gone on. And he talks about how it was like a 5:30 a.m. drive-by shooting. I was at the edge of something. Suddenly I was put at the centre of it as a result of historical emails of which I have no memory and no record. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I said this yesterday. You know, I remember exactly what happened 20 years ago when I got made redundant from the Daily Mirror. And I remember exactly how much money they paid me, you know, and not because he's so wealthy that he doesn't remember how much money they paid him. Everybody knows what's going on. If you receive $75,000, you know where it's come from.
Yeah, and also this $10,000 for his husband to help him through, is it osteopathy school or something? Some absolute nonsense. But his statement to the Times, this interview he's done over the last 24 hours, I mean, is really quite unbelievable on the basis that, you know, we're still only 24 hours into the fact that he's had to resign. Now we're talking about these scandals around insider trading. The statement he's made to the Times journalists is this, which is, well, I prefer to be on the outside looking in. I think I can be of more service and more help. You think, no, just go away. Right, you're done.
Yeah, and he says he's not going to hide under a rock. Well, a lot of people would quite like it if he did hide under a rock, and a rather large rock at that. He says it felt like being killed without actually dying. He says, looking back at what he describes as a life-changing crisis, I can tell you it's a unique experience. I'm navigating the experience because I have really good friends who are helping me do so, starting with Ronaldo, that's not the footballer, by the way, more than anyone else. The other problem here is that Keir Starmer is now right in the eye of the storm, isn't he? Because Keir Starmer's judgment has been called into question very, very seriously by not only MPs in the House of Commons, but by every single person in the Labour Party and by backbenchers in the Labour Party who are apparently absolutely revolting at how useless this leadership of the Labour Party is.
Well, as we said, so Starmer was advised not to appoint him as ambassador, but he ignored that. Gordon Brown yesterday also came out on record and said, I raised suspicions about the behaviour of Mandelson with regard to this Epstein leaking of information many, many months ago. So Gordon Brown, I guess he's trying to cover himself, but this is almost another element of civil war within the Labour Party, as if it wasn't at war with itself already over the whole Burnham Rayner thing and so on. Now, this is another excuse for backbenchers to get behind the likes of Gordon Brown and others to have a go at Keir Starmer. But let's just talk about the whole Keir Starmer thing for a second. We should not forget that there have been not one, not five, not 10, but 11 frontbench Labour resignations in just 18 months. You know, we've had people that have had to resign from the front bench for fraud. Tulip Siddiqui, of course, who's now been convicted in her absence twice and sentenced to prison. She was the corruption minister who's been done for corruption.
There was the transport secretary, wasn't there?
Louise Haigh
was first to go. Louise Haigh, who seemed to have a bit of a problem with having her mobile phone reportedly stolen several times, when it turned out it hadn't been stolen
at all. Andrew Gwynn, Lord Cryer, Annalise Dodds, Lord Hunt, Baroness Curran, Vicky Foxcroft, Lord Morace, Rushanara Ali, and of course our favourite, Angela Rayner. That's the list.
Who gets very confused about how much tax she's supposed to pay.
Yes,
she never seems to know.
She doesn't pay that stamp duty.
And now they're saying that she's raised £1 million of a war chest to fight Keir Starmer.
I
mean, his job is now looking more and more impossible to do. Gordon Brown also, I think several months ago, asked the government to look into the reports of Mandelson's, exchanges, shall we say, leaking emails to Jeffrey Epstein, and they came back and said, "Oh no, we haven't found any evidence of it." So I've got two questions for you. One, why did the government not discover this earlier and therefore kick Mandelson out earlier from I'm not talking about from his job, but from the Labour Party? And secondly, what's our national security team doing? You know, how are they allowing a guy like Peter Mandelson, who has been known, obviously by somebody, to have leaked very, very important information and very confidential information of national interest, shall we say. How has he been reappointed to a very highly sensitive job where he would see even more highly sensitive information And why didn't, if they didn't know that he had done it, why didn't they know?
Well, and you would imagine that, our government has tools at its disposal, the likes of MI5, MI6, Cheltenham GCHQ, and goodness knows what else. Couldn't have been that hard to find a couple of emails from a few years ago from one individual to another.
Yeah, I mean, I can't park anywhere where they've got camera recognition without getting a ticket.
Yeah.
Peter Mandelson apparently can roam around the world giving secrets away and giving secret financial information to multi-billionaire international investment bankers.
Who are convicted paedophiles.
And yet he can still get the job to be ambassador to the United States of America.
It's clear that whatever investigation as a consequence of the whole Gordon Brown tip-off thing, that investigation was, well, what will they do? I don't know. Just looked under the covers for 10 seconds and that was it. I mean, there was clearly no kind of real enthusiasm insofar as trying to really get to the bottom of whether there were leaks or not. But then I guess we have to ask the question as to why. Why would Mandelson be protected as much?
Yes.
Well, it might just be that Keir Starmer realised very, very late, given his lack of political judgment generally, that he was in trouble on the basis that he'd appointed him. So I suppose then he thinks, well, hang on a sec, I can't have this coming out because that makes me look like the idiot.
Right.
Or is it more sinister? Is it that Lord Mandelson, because he's known as the Dark
Lord,
Dark Lord, maybe he's got something on some people within government.
There's no question that Morgan McSweeney, who is the sort of puppet master inside Downing Street, supposedly, although I'm doubtful as to how clever he actually is, he was very much pushing for Mandelson because he used to work for Mandelson back in the time when he was basically leaking all this stuff. So maybe McSweeney knew and somehow, owed Mandelson a favour of some kind. It's just absolute stinks to high heaven. Mandelson has to be guilty of insider dealing so that others make a fortune, especially Epstein, says the man from Kernow. Well, of course, I mean, he does say he has no recollection of it, which is not quite the same as saying I didn't do it.
No.
But he says he doesn't remember doing it.
It's the standard politician's excuse now, isn't
he doesn't recognise the
It's
email.
like having no plans to do a particular thing. Doesn't mean you're not actually going to do it.
Exactly right. Let's have a look at what some of the people in Parliament were saying yesterday. Robert Jenrick, first up on Peter Mandelson here.
Appointing Peter Mandelson to our Premier Ambassadorship was always a grotesque error of judgment by the Prime Minister, given everything that we knew about this man. And now we're told that this man leaked confidential information to a convicted sex offender when he was a cabinet minister and took tens of thousands of pounds in secret backhanders. It is a total disgrace. Is the Minister really coming to the House today to say that he neither intends to bring forward primary legislation to deal with this now, but will write to the House of Lords and seek their support to modernise their procedures in months' time, and nor will he go proactively to the police and demand an investigation when Peter Mandelson has clearly broken the law and stands now accused of serious misconduct in a public office and should be tried for his offences?
I mean, that's a pretty serious charge, isn't it? Robert Jenrick, former Justice Minister, former Immigration Minister, Shadow Justice, now Reform MP, saying that he should stand trial effectively and saying that and accusing him pretty much outright of doing the leaking while he was a cabinet minister.
Yeah. Look, I think there's
there's not much equivocation there, is there?
There's already evidence that it's the case. Look, I guess that Mandelson and his team will say innocent or proven guilty. But I think the other thing is, this is the epitome, from our point of view as the public, of the establishment corruption, isn't it? And I think Mandelson now becomes, or probably was already, but even more so now, the kind of poster child for all of this political class and everything that's bad about them. The fact that they are arrogant, out of touch.
The political system.
Yeah, and look, has Mandelson shown any remorse?
No.
None at all.
No, quite the reverse. I mean, as you say, in the Times interview, he's kind of trying to make himself out to be some kind of victim.
Yeah.
That,
don't worry, I'm coming back to help everybody, but I'll be outside the tent rather than inside.
Yeah. He says disciplinary action was already underway before he decided to take the decision to quit the Labour Party to stop any further embarrassment. But he says, my decision wasn't easy. And he said, but I feel better for it as I need to reset. Reset? I mean, how about it just disappear?
For the fourth time.
Unbelievable stuff. Lots of you, by the way, getting in touch, and you've got much to say about this. Will Mandelson throw others under the bus? Says disgruntled. Labour government looks more like a rerun of Peyton Place every day, because that's a show from the past. Why does Starmer ignore all the advice from professionals who are there to advise him? Absolutely unbelievable what has been going on. They are the lowest of the low, says Benita. I hope Mandelson turns bitter and reveals Starmer's secrets, says Sandra. I mean, there's so much intrigue going on here. You can barely It's no wonder they can't run the country with all the ridiculousness going on behind the scenes.
With all the scandal, and no doubt all the political firefighting that they're having to do in the back rooms of Number 10.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is Wes Streeting's been very quiet, because did you see what he posted a few months ago, which was Mandelson with Wes Streeting's mother saying, "This is my mum's new mate." Oops.
Yeah, and a Sarwar as well, saying his good friend, a picture of him and his good friend Peter Mandelson with his arm around him. Everyone's gone very, very quiet indeed. But Mandelson just, what an absolute ghastly, awful, terrible excuse for a bloke. And a government minister to boot, absolutely extraordinary. Now, lots of you also noticing that there's something missing from the studio this morning, and I think most of you will know what it is. Normally, it would be over Russell's left shoulder, and it was, of course, the subject of much conversation yesterday, and it was the heron that used to sit in the studio. It's not here anymore. And I've got a little video to show you as to what happened to it.
Go. What's that, Mike?
I'm just putting the heron in the rubbish.
How come?
Because, they voted and we've got to stick with the vote. I know Donald said he wants to make some kind of appeal, but at the end of the day, we've got a lot of clutter in the studio as well. People keep complaining we've got too much stuff. Is that the bin you just bumped into?
I didn't think it was a heron.
Well, it's not actually, is it? It's a crane. That's the problem. I'm just going to chuck it in here. This is got the rubbish in. I'll stick it here.
Down there.
Somebody will get rid of it.
Yeah, final words on the
Yeah,
crane.
listen, I'm sorry about this, but it's not a heron at the end of the day. We can't have it. We can't, it's a crane, right? It's a crane. And now it's an X-crane. Goodbye. See ya. Had a look this morning. It's not there. So
It's been recycled.
It's been
into something.
Well, and here's the evidence, right? This was sent to us, right, by Donald McLeod. Came in an eco-friendly and recyclable box, right, which is nice. Waterproof and UV resistant, which is important.
Greta would be very pleased.
Now, I don't know how it got into this box. It's quite a small box. But if you look at what it says on the box, it says a crane.
Oh.
Quite clearly.
Oh.
Now, unless somebody put it in the wrong box, that's what it came in. And, of course, Pooch didn't notice because he just opened the top. Didn't look at the side. But there it says, garden statue, crane. So the crane's gone, I'm afraid. But we've got another challenge for you today, right? Because yesterday we said to people, if we got to 5,000 likes, we would keep the crane. If it got to 6,000, we'd get rid of it. And it got to 6,000 plus. And I think it's 7,000 in the end. So today's challenge, ladies and gentlemen, is for you. My question to you is this. I nearly put on a striped shirt this morning. Now, I normally only ever wear a white shirt, a blue shirt, or a pink shirt to work, right? With a hopefully a matching tie of some description. But I've got this really nice stripy shirt, which is sort of blue and white stripes. And I'm wondering whether I should wear it. So I thought what we'll do is we'll ask for people to like the show. And if it gets to 3,000, I'll wear a stripy shirt tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough.
What do you think?
You look very banker, weren't you?
Banker?
Banker.
Banker. Yeah. I just fancy a trip down to Avenue Foch, which apparently is named after a French general.
No, is it?
Yeah.
What does Foch actually
General
mean
Foch.
in
Apparently
French? Do we know?
it's French for fox.
Fox.
Apparently. Yeah.
Okay, tread carefully here.
But I guess you've got to tread carefully. And if you're Peter Mandelson standing in his underpants...
Well, he's not treading carefully, is he?
I don't know about whether he knows he's in Avenue Foch or whether
Well,
he's
you
just...
didn't know he was having the picture taken. I suspect he probably did.
I don't think so. Well,
really?
The picture apparently, because I was reading this yesterday, there's an awful lot of pictures which apparently were taken by Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine Maxwell, depending on how you like to pronounce her name, there were thousands of them, all uploaded onto a digital kind of file. And many of them are semi-pornographic. Many of them involve some of the young girls that were involved in whatever it was they were doing. And many of them are these kind of candid shots. So I think
various celebrities and dignitaries.
Yes, of various people.
So where's that hard drive?
I think it's with whoever has got the
Is it with the FBI?
No, I don't think so. I think it's with... Because the other thing I heard yesterday was that the person who's running this whole kind of, sort of Epstein file is a sort of an internet billionaire of some description.
Okay.
Not quite sure who he is, but he's the one that's kind of giving it over in dribs and drabs
Yeah.
to the Department of Justice. And I think it's the Department of Justice that's then releasing it. So some of the stuff is fake. Some of the stuff is difficult to check.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff is simply made up.
But isn't the wisdom a bit like the whole P. Diddy thing?
Yeah.
That a lot of what was in Epstein's mind at the time, and potentially Ghislaine Maxwell's, was to ensure that there was evidence of compromising activity and behaviour by these celebrities. Although no one's been convicted, of course.
No. Well, I mean, again,
Apart from Ghislaine
the
Maxwell.
Department of Justice has not named really anybody else. Lots of names have been redacted.
The Clintons have said yesterday that they're going to go and give evidence.
Oh, are they? Because they said before they weren't going
Because
to.
they're under huge pressure.
Yeah, I mean, they were saying they were going to submit a written statement, but
Well,
they were
it
not.
might not be the truth, but they're going to give evidence.
Well, you know, I did not have sex with that woman. Remember that?
Yeah.
And everyone went, sorry?
Yeah.
You know, and then one of the greatest sort of politicians' excuses of all time was when he said, at the time when I said that, I believed it to be true.
Yeah, great.
Therefore, I wasn't lying.
It's like the whole
And you go-
it's like the alternative facts thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So when I told you it was Wednesday yesterday,
I believed it.
I believed it was Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it turns out it wasn't Wednesday.
Yeah.
But I wasn't lying.
But I don't know which Clinton is worse. So
Yeah.
Bill for the whole, Monica Lewinsky thing, or of course let's not forget Hillary, who lost about 1 million emails that she had inappropriately and wrongly on an inappropriate device.
Yes. Which was not secure.
No. So they're not exactly paragons of truth either of the Clintons.
You
are
do
they?
wonder, don't you, when people get to that level of kind of power, you'd think they'd be a bit more careful with what they do.
Because I think arrogance kicks in.
Yeah.
They just think they're indestructible.
Yeah.
Epstein did, the Clintons do.
Yeah, maybe.
Many of them. Mandelson, of course.
Of course. So many of you saying, thank God the heroin is gone. Not many people saying that they're sorry to see it go. The Crane was an innocent victim of the Mechia. The Mechia, what is that, says Phil. I'm not quite sure. Yes to the striped shirt, says Phyllis. Okay then. A vote from Hua Hin, Thailand. Go for the stripes. Okay. And Avina says, I'm off out to buy some of those Mandel pants. Well, I mean, good luck to you. Now, we've got a few other stories to get into as well, so we should probably move on, should we not? What's your next favourite story that's nothing to do with the Mandelson?
We've got to talk about doctors.
Doctors, yes, doctors' strikes.
Because they've been on strike now since when? 2023.
Yes.
Wes Streeting said, of course, when he was in opposition, it was absolutely outrageous that the Conservative government at the time and the health minister, I think it was Jeremy Hunt, wasn't it, had fumbled the whole doctors' strike thing.
Yeah.
Well, Wes, I have news for you. You've been in power for 18 months and they're still on strike. They still want, I think it's 26% is the pay rise that the doctors are still seeking, over and above the 20 or so percent that they got about a year and a half ago.
Right. Well, this is the thing. Front page of the Times today, they've basically balloted again, and I think 27,000 doctors. So it's not a small number.
But only a 51%
It's only 51% of the actual group, and they're not all doctors either.
Yeah.
So it's just the people in the BMA. But 27,000. So, you know, I'm not going to have anybody telling me that these people are great people.
No.
You know, these are people who are supposed to vow first to do no harm, and they're supposed to be helping out. And we found out yesterday, by the way, that what I've been saying for months and months is true, that the reduction in the waiting list numbers has nothing to do with people being seen.
Yeah.
It's everything to do with them just removing names from the list.
Yeah.
86,000 of them, right?
Yeah.
So now the resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, I'm still calling them that, have been on strike for a total of 59 days since 2023, right? They were given a pay rise as soon as Labour got in of about 30%, weren't they?
Yep.
and then
And immediately wanted more.
And then immediately wanted another 26%. They're all now on pretty good money. They're now still asking for a sort of a reset because of the inflation going up to 11%, but that's not the case anymore.
Well,
so inflation's running at about 3%.
And those that are sympathetic because they're junior doctors and the illusion that they're on about 25 grand a year
They're
and they
not.
can't, they're not. Junior doctors, some of them are on £100,000.
Right.
I mean, okay, the process of getting out the other side of being a junior doctor takes ages, but I think the average is about 65 to 70k.
Right.
You know, this is not destitution. And of course, these people, I mean, look, I applaud the fact that they go into medicine in the first place to help others, but if you decide
not
that
really.
you're going
I
into
don't
medicine to help
applaud
others, well, no. But my point is, if you're going into medicine to help others, on the salary that is designated at the time, that's it. You don't go in and then say, not only do you want a pay rise, and it's fair enough to have a pay rise of 3 or 4%, you know, inflation being what it is, but to ask for not one but two, 20% something pay increases in short succession, I mean, it's basically holding the public hostage.
It is, because they're basically saying they want permission to have another strike.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't actually voted for yet another strike now, but they're asking for another 6-month kind of period so that they can go on strike between now, presumably in the summer.
But I think they've lost the public now. The public
think they
maybe
have.
3 years ago might have been semi-sympathetic.
Yeah.
Now they're not.
No, they're not. Because everybody's struggling now, you know, and what right do junior doctors have to suddenly get a 25% pay rise
Well,
when everybody else is actually paying more money for all the things that they have to buy every single week. Prices are going up, electricity prices are up, water bills are going up, gas prices are up, everything's up.
Yeah.
And yet we're supposed to give them more money from our taxpayers.
Yeah, and ironically, probably, I would venture that a lot of these junior doctors voted Labour in the general election. And they're now subject to what Labour are doing to the economy and the cost of living going up.
And also, Wes Streeting said he's not going to give them any more money.
Yep.
So they're no longer the friend of the Labour government, are they?
No, exactly. And the other thing that has to be mentioned, of course, is the BMA, the British Medical Association.
Or the British Marxist Association.
Well, I'm going to say they sound like a nice, fluffy kind of, formal association that is focused on all that's right and good about medicine and the medical profession. They're not. I mean, they are effectively, as you say, a Marxist anarchist union that seem to be actually, worse than the likes of the train driver unions and so on, the likes of ASLEF and so on. They are anarchistic in terms of their wish just to kind of continue to disrupt. And look, is this costing lives? You bet your life it is. No pun intended. But people will die as a consequence of having their operations cancelled because these guys want to stand outside on a picket line because they want a new Tesla.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Well, all you've got to do, if you want to know how badly doctors are paid, is go to any hospital and go into the doctor's car park and check out the cars. Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, Jaguars, Bentleys, probably the odd Ferrari
They
as
are
well.
not hard up.
They are very much not hard up, and lots of you are sympathising. That was a good message there. Can I just get that one back, Pooch? Doctors get paid so much they can afford to not work full time, so the strike time is just time they want to take off anyway. This is why we have a GP shortage. Twig says doctors do it for the money and prestige nowadays. This is what you get for clapping for people doing what they should be doing. Well, I never clapped for them because, frankly, during COVID, that's your job, I used to say that to my kids. I used to turn up at home at the weekends and go, "You're going to clap me walking down the garden path because I've just been at work all week." Had a great show. Thanks very much indeed. Well done. Let's have a look at this though. Yesterday there was a story in the front page of the Telegraph saying that the Department for Environment and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, has decided that the countryside is too white. And therefore, what we need to do is get more people who are not white out into the countryside, right? As a result, lots of people, we talked about it on the show yesterday, some people are picking up as well today. Yesterday, on GB News, a woman called Scarlett Maguire, who I've had the odd run-in with, as I'm sure you have, who's a bit of an old Labour kind of fogey.
She's a piece of work.
She really is. Here's her explanation as to why apparently some people who are not white and who are particularly Muslim might not like going to the countryside. Check this out.
We've got a problem. Actually it's a lot about the national parks and getting people out there and making national parks for everybody. And one of the problems is dogs. And actually, this isn't just about the fact that a lot of Muslims find dogs very difficult. It is about people who do not know how to control their dogs.
Why do Muslims find dogs difficult?
Because a lot of they don't have dogs as pets. They have dogs as
But that shouldn't stop other people taking their dogs to the country because there are some people there who don't like dogs.
There are a lot of, as we know, and
hold that thought,
there are
guys.
a lot of very badly behaved dogs.
See you next time.
See you next time. You see how they all basically crap themselves? As soon as anybody mentions Muslims and dogs, they go, oh, don't say it, don't talk about it, don't mention it. No. Yeah. I mean, that's so ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, that is the reaction of the mainstream media now. And I'm sorry to have a go at GB News, but, that is ridiculous.
But Scarlett Maguire actually says, her words were, one of the problems of the countryside is dogs. No, actually, one of the beauties one of the benefits of the countryside is dogs. I hope Ziggy's not watching this, Mike, by the way, because he's already under the cosh because of the whole forestry commission thing, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean
he's going to feel pretty oppressed.
Yeah, Ziggy will probably be out walking, but one of the problems for Ziggy at the moment is that he can't walk in his favourite woods because the Forestry Commission have put a parking fee on going to the woods now.
But now he can't go out in the countryside in case there's some Muslims there.
Yeah, well, that's right. And they might not like it. I remember back in the day when I used to work in the old offices of Talk Sport, there was a guy called Sean Dilley, I don't know if you ever came across, who was partially sighted. So he had a guide dog, right? And he used to specialise in doing stories about where he couldn't go with his dog. For example, quite often Uber drivers and minicab drivers, if they were Muslims, wouldn't let him in, even though by law they had to. And he once said to me, come with me, and we went for a curry. And we opened the door to this curry restaurant in just round the corner from Hatfields, which was down near Waterloo. And the look on this guy's face, he was literally recoiled in horror because they see dogs as unclean.
But they think they're dirty.
Yeah, like pigs.
Yeah,
you know. And so while they can't eat pork, they also can't be in the same room as a dog. And we went into this Indian restaurant, and they made us sit about as far away from the kitchen as you could possibly get, practically in the street, you know. And the guy would come over and kind of stand back like this and sort of, take the order.
No, I've
weird.
I've had a similar experience. I remember taking one of my Vishlers. I've got 2 Hungarian Vishlers, who I playfully on social media called Ronnie and Reggie. Yeah, they're kind of Labrador size.
Okay.
Yeah, Ronnie and Reggie, but they're actually called Muttley and Finley.
Right.
And before Finley came along, I took Muttley on the tube a few times.
Muttley.
Muttley. That actually
Muttley.
started as a joke. It's actually his name.
Right.
And I'm sitting on the tube, minding my own business, with Muttley sitting next to me, behaving himself. And some ladies got on the tube with their hijabs on and literally recoiled as they got on that this disgusting dog was sitting in front of them. And they had to sit down in front of me because they'd already kind of committed.
Right.
But they were looking at me as if I was the guy in the wrong.
Yeah,
and
right.
that it was
'Cause you've got a
disgraceful
dog.
and disgusting of me. But there's another thing, of course. Dogs are a bit controversial at home as
Are they?
well, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
So my... I shouldn't really say this, and hopefully she's not watching. The only
trouble now.
The only thing I row with my wife about is our dogs.
Is that right?
And there's a left wing, right wing.
And who chose the
anecdote.
dogs then, out of both of you? Did you
Well,
both do it?
kind of both of us, yeah.
So do you feel that they're your dogs or her dogs?
No, they're both our dogs. Although when we chose Finley 2
Yeah.
years ago, so he's only 2, I couldn't go up to pick him up from wherever it was, Durham somewhere. My wife rang me on FaceTime, showed me the litter of Vizsla puppies and said, this one seems really cute, but he is the naughty one. Should we get him? And of course I said no, and she came back with the naughty one.
Okay.
And we're kind of living to
But you know how
tell
dogs
the tale.
will have a master who is inevitably
It's
the
my
male.
wife. It's Carolina.
Is it
for sure.
her?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
But here's the thing. So the thing we argue about is the conduct of dog walking.
Yeah.
And apparently, I think there's like a right wing, left wing difference between how people walk their dogs and take them out.
Right.
So I'm very kind of centre right. Bit Republican, kind of just do your thing.
Bit libertarian, yeah. Libertarian,
I take
off
them off
you
the
go.
lead and they're off,
Yeah.
right? And if they come across other dogs and other owners, regardless, dogs will be dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs behave as they do. They don't attack anybody, they're fine. But of course you get lots and lots of lefty, nervous dog walkers, particularly the ones with the silly, pointless little things, the chihuahuas and whatever they are, French bulldogs, which I don't like very much. They pick them up and then look at you as if to say, yeah, your dog's in the wrong here.
Yeah.
Well, my wife is the opposite to me. As soon as she sees a dog walker walking towards her and the dog is on the lead, apparently now, I didn't realise this until recently, the etiquette is you're supposed to put your dog on the lead.
Yeah, I don't
you
do that. No.
So
No,
I don't do
absolutely
that.
not.
I don't
I
do
get
that.
told off for it
But
as well.
apparently it's very controversial,
Yeah.
one versus the other. It's the only thing we row about. So we very rarely go out together with the 2 dogs. Because, of course, I say, Finley's off, he's doing his thing. She'll put Muttley on the lead when something comes the other way. And that's what we row about.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
very
I think a
polarising.
lot depends on where you are as well. Particularly if you're in a sort of a big, wide open space.
Yeah, I'm not in Marks and Spencer's
or the
doing
woods.
this.
Yeah, right. But I mean, so for example, if you're in sort of what I would call a manicured park, for example, it might be that you probably don't let them off the lead there. But if you're in the woods or you're in some
where
kind
we
of wide open space, I think you definitely, absolutely, you
Thorndon
do.
Country Park is where we go.
Definitely. I mean, the other thing is though, which is the opposite side of that, I suppose, is that and I used to get this more at the beach than anywhere else. You'd get sort of not very pleasant looking people with not very pleasant looking dogs on a lead. And my dog, Ziggy, obviously very friendly, would go up to any dog. And sometimes the other dog would be really quite nasty. And the guy would say something like, "Oh, he's not very friendly." I'm like, "Well, why are you bringing him out then? Well, take him somewhere where there aren't any other dogs. If he's not very, and also, why is he not very friendly?
Maybe leave him at home.
And if your dog's not very friendly, maybe it's because you're not very friendly.
Well, it's like nervous
You know.
dogs. The reason your dog is nervous is because you pick it up all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's not hard.
I
is
mean,
it?
it's a fascinating conversation because I'm sure everyone listening now with dogs will absolutely have a view. Got this one from Jan who says, "I don't agree with Russell here. Your dogs must be under recall command. If you can't do that, you're in the wrong."
Oh, no, they are. They're
You
just
never
not on the
know
lead.
if the other dog's reacting. Well, he didn't say whether it wasn't.
No,
it wouldn't come
my
back.
dogs come back. There's a whistle
Yeah.
and everything. Believe me, that's not the point. The point is automatically, no matter how well or otherwise behaved your dog is, the etiquette apparently is if another dog is on the lead coming towards you, you're supposed to put yours on the lead. And I disagree with that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm getting a sausage dog. I love those, says Lord Viking. And can you ask Russell if he'd do your show if you're sick or on holiday? Maybe that's one for the likes that we'll do later in the week, actually.
Oh, great.
What
What if I don't get 5 likes?
I have asked, by the way, if you get to 3,000 likes today, we're at 1.6 at the moment. You get to 3,000 likes, I will wear a striped shirt tomorrow. So there. How about this? Brits abroad is becoming a thing in the past. We just talked about dogs. What about going on holiday, right? This story here. If you fill your suitcase with tins of beans before jetting off on holiday and can't help hunting for an English-style pub when you get there, then you're one of a dying breed. And apparently trends that are currently being left behind, because we're all becoming more internationalist. Sitting by a hotel pool all week. Do you do that?
Yeah, pool and beach, yeah.
Buckets and spades?
No.
Umbrellas in cocktails?
No.
Pints in the morning at the airport?
No.
Eating a full English at the airport?
Maybe.
Getting sunburnt on day one?
Yeah, well, no. But, you know, my big thing is taking tea bags on holiday with me.
Is it?
I take my tea bags,
right.
my Marks & Spencer Waitrose Gold, I might add, because you can never get a decent cup of tea when you're on holiday.
Yeah, that's true. Unless you get... Well, some hotels, you've got them in the room now, haven't you?
Yeah, but it just doesn't taste the same.
Doesn't taste the same. Speaking of things to do in pubs, Reform pledging £3 billion, which is a good story this morning,
so this
to save British pubs.
Yeah, so this is money. So Nigel Farage yesterday says as and when, and I say when, not if, Reform end up in government, he will halve duty on beer, so that will take about 5 pence off a pint of beer.
Yeah.
But also, and this is the biggest thing, and I'm sure very, very welcome in the hospitality sector, is to phase out business rates in pubs.
Right.
So what Rachel Reeves has done over the last few months, successive budgets actually, is to squeeze pub landlords more and more and more.
And prices going up this week, aren't they, because the alcohol tax
Yeah,
has gone
and again, to be clear, what the government are now trying to say in terms of their backpedalling is, well, we're actually giving a discount on business rates. Well, yeah, you're giving a discount off a much higher amount because you've also revalued every pub and put all the prices up. Do you want to do that story that we said we might not do?
Which one?
The artillery shell.
Oh, this is a really odd one, isn't it?
You really want to do this?
I think we should do it, but we'll just do it with care.
Okay.
There's a piece on page 5 of the Daily Mail, which I suppose gives it away if I read the headline out. Bum disposal squad called for A&E patients' explosive ailments.
It's a story.
Please explain.
It's an explosive story.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a pain in the arse.
Oh, well,
I guess
I see what you did there.
So this is in France, of course. Where
course.
else? Yeah, where else?
Anywhere near Avenue Foch?
No. Something, I was going to say something extremely rude then. So this is a French patient who, fun enough, will remain nameless, apparently, according to the Standard. And
24 years of age, apparently.
24-year-old unidentified man. He went to the hospital in agony over the weekend, wondering why he had a pain in his rear. Turns out that surgeons, when they started operating on him, they found that he had somehow, I mean, it's a mystery as to how, somehow a World War I artillery shell measuring 8 inches in length had inserted itself into his backside.
We've all done it.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, where would you
Bruce.
find an 8-inch artillery shell?
Well, World War I as well, but they called the bomb squad.
The bum squad.
They actually thought it might explode. I mean, I don't know what's worse, really, having it in your
Rectum.
person, in the first place, or then actually worrying. I mean, I think they evacuated the entire hospital. This is. I mean, this guy's not going to stay anonymous for long, is he?
He's not, is he?
This is the Rangueil Accident and Emergency Unit in Toulouse. Toulouse, for sure. He definitely lost, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Lost his dignity.
He
that's
certainly
for sure.
did. It says here the patient is set to be interviewed by police as prosecutors contemplate legal action for handling what they call Category A munitions.
Yeah, apparently when he was admitted to
So his
hospital,
phone's ringing.
he neglected to tell the medical staff what the item was at the time. I mean, maybe he fell on it, didn't realise what it was.
It sounds a bit like that David Walliams sketch.
Oh,
doesn't
Little
it?
Britain.
Yeah, in Little Britain. I accidentally tripped as I was going
Fell
into the
backwards.
house and fell backwards and found myself inside another man. Or something worse to that effect, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we've got to find out the name of this this particular Frenchman with a penchant for
I imagine that
all things artillery shell.
the very imaginative audience that I have could probably come up with a few names for him.
Yes.
I mean, Jean-Luc Böhm. There's a Böhm. Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
Jean-Luc Böhm.
Berm in my berm.
The bum squad, yeah, absolutely right. There's some funny things coming in. Love Russ, great show, Mike, brilliant, says Nick. What about restaurants and cafes, says Phil. Our local cafe business rates have gone up by 260%. They can't afford this and are thinking of closing after already reducing part-time staff. I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? That for an awful lot of businesses, particularly pubs, particularly restaurants...
And small hotels.
And small hotels and small hospitality operations. I mean, I think all the time, for example, of places like, I don't know if you've ever been to Canberra Sands, but Canberra Sands has got a little cafe, two actually, that sit there. And in the winter months, they're not very busy. They make most of their money in the summer. You know, but places like that, if their business rates go up by 200 or 300%, they're shutting down. They can't
and the
afford to
real world
keep open.
consequence of that, where I live in Essex, all of the country park cafes were slated as being closed because no one could afford the rent and the business rates to operate them. And it's a travesty, isn't it? You know,
really
and this is why high streets across Britain are being hollowed out. You know, they're now just estate agents, barber and vape shops. You know, rather than being actually somewhere where you want to go and shop for, you know, your greengrocer, your butcher, your, you know, whatever. So,
well, this is the ridiculous thing now when you hear these, sort of, you know, Labour cabinet ministers talking about revitalising the high street and getting rid of those kinds of shops and bringing back your local shop. Well, there's a reason why they all left. It's because previous governments encouraged huge supermarkets to open out of town where you could go and park. You couldn't park in your local high street because the local burgers had made it impossible because they were charging you too much money. Business rates went up too high, so butchers, bakers all left. That's why the high streets are stripped bare because nobody can afford to run there.
But the other problem, of course, is when was the last time a Labour politician, a Labour frontbencher, went to the high street? Do we think? I mean, obviously they're banned from most places now. Certainly pubs,
that's it.
cafes,
they can't
and
go
so
to pubs, can they?
on. But they're completely out of touch, and they probably don't even know what a high street really is or does.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. A couple of final ones to mention. Have you seen the story about the Trump Arch? This is a good one. It's in the Washington Post, which tells you how internationalist we are here at the Mike Graham Show. Apparently, Trump wants to build a huge arch, like a sort of Arc de Triomphe, in Washington, D.C., but he wants it at the Lincoln Memorial, which I don't know whether you've been to Washington, D.C.
I haven't, but I know what you mean.
Lincoln sits in this huge, you know, this massive, great big...
It's the Lincoln Library, isn't it? Is it?
Well, there's the library, but no, this is at the end of the Washington Mall where they've got the monument, which is the big tall needle. And then at the end of that, there's the Vietnam Memorial, which is a very moving...
And he sits on his chair, doesn't he?
And then Lincoln sitting on his chair. That's apparently 80 feet high. The White House is 70 feet high, right? Guess how big the arch is going to be?
100?
250 feet high, right? So it will completely dominate the landscape.
Is it going to be called the Trump Arch?
Yes, of course it is.
Of course.
You know, he's already renamed the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. And apparently there's a lot of consternation in Washington, D.C., because, of course, when you're the president, you can do whatever you like. So if he wants this arch built, and he wants to build it right next to the Lincoln Memorial, it's going to dominate the whole skyline.
Well, it'll be a political hot potato in football forever, wouldn't it?
Can you
whoever
imagine?
comes in next, they're going to want to rename it.
Or they'll try and knock it down or something. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And then finally, this one for the migrant community here. South Africa's Zulu King has basically said that migrants should leave the country.
Yeah, a bit racist, this.
A bit racist. At an event commemorating the British defeat at the Battle of, I think it says, Bandiwana, King... I can't actually read this properly. He's basically said that all migrants from neighbouring countries need to leave.
Well, he said there's been lots of migrants coming over, impregnating local women. He said so the women and the kids that are the result of that particular, you know, set of liaisons, they can stay.
They can stay,
but the migrant men have got to go. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I mean, you know, there is possible, you know, lessons to be learned.
But where's the outcry from the British liberal left about that?
Oh yeah, I know. Well, we haven't seen any of that.
Listen, do you think that's going to happen?
No, no, of course not. Absolutely not. Give you an update, please, as well on the poll. We've got a poll out today. Which is the most annoying family in the world? The Windsors, that's Sarah and Andrew, the Kardashians, the Markles, or the Beckhams. And believe it or not, despite what Andrew's been getting up to, the lead at the moment, the Markles, Harry and Meghan.
Isn't it the Waltons?
48%.
The Waltons. Because the way they say goodnight to each other is so annoying.
Well, yeah, but they're not real, Russell.
Oh, right.
Sorry to break that to you. You know, they're a fictitious family. We could do that tomorrow. Worst and most annoying fictitious family. We're going to do Plank of the Day coming up a bit later on. You'll have Mike's Meltdown shortly after 8 o'clock. Claire Pearsall's here as well. She's going to be telling us what she makes of the latest Mandelson situation. And also, of course, what on earth is going to happen to Keir Starmer? And when is he going to be dragged through the mud over this whole thing? Russell Quirk, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. We'll see you very soon. And as I say, we've also got the likes competition going on. If you want me to wear a striped shirt tomorrow, just hit the like button. If we get to 3,000, I'll do it. 2.2 thousand at the moment. Right now, though, it's time for Edward Hughes with the news.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 3rd of February. I'm Edward Hughes. Another glorious day in Blighty. Topping the headlines, Lord Peter Mandelson, the eternal comeback kid, has finally been caught leaking sensitive government secrets to Jeffrey Epstein back in the day. Because nothing says trustworthy statesman like sharing Eurozone bailout details with a convicted sex offender. Police are now reviewing misconduct. Keir Starmer wants his peerage yanked, and the Blairite wing is basically holding a funeral. Shocked faces all round, obviously. Is that the same Keir Starmer who appointed Mandy as UK ambassador to the USA? Just asking. Meanwhile, Sarah Ferguson, never one to miss a scandal, is shutting down her charity after fresh Epstein files revealed she called him the brother I always wished for. Heartwarming. Royal-adjacent vibes remain pristine. She and Rayner could do a good duet together. And band names? Elsewhere, the Church of England bishops are tut-tutting about Palestinians while the government ignores ICJ rulings. Standard foreign policy excellence. McCain Foods is launching a farm of the future in Yorkshire to save British spuds from climate doom. Chips are saved, everyone, and in lighter news, AI bots are apparently moaning about humans now. You lot. Finally, something we can all agree on. Britain 2026. Still world-beating at sleaze, sanctimony, and slightly better potatoes. Cheers! Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the latest news. Likes up to 2.4 thousand. If they get to 3, as I said, I'll wear a striped shirt tomorrow. We'll be talking to Claire Pearsall coming up later on. Mark Littlewood's going to join us as well. And also Edwina Curry is going to be here before the end of the show. Up next, Sunil Sharma as well. We're going to talk to him about a great many things. Before we do that, let's have a look at Kemi Badenoch yesterday, because everybody got back into Parliament. Keir Starmer got back from China, and she gave him a right old roasting. Have a look at this.
The Prime Minister looked like he enjoyed his trip. In fact, it looked like a dream come true for a man who was virtually a communist most of his life. Yeah. But apart from the...
I love the fact that he looked so miserable sitting opposite, and he didn't like it when people were giving him a hard time. There was a good clip as well yesterday from the leader of the SNP. I think we might get that one a little bit later on. Stephen Flynn, who basically said that there was, absolutely scandalous things going on at home while Keir Starmer was messing around in China and in Japan. And it has to be said that Keir Starmer has returned to a right old storm. There's another word I could call it, but I'm not going to, because that would be wrong. But let's talk to Sunil Sharma now, because he's here with us to give us his view on the latest scandal. I mean, it's hard to imagine, Sunil, very good morning to you, how much worse this gets for Keir Starmer, isn't it? Not hearing him. Are you hearing him? Sorry, Sunil, we can't actually hear you at the moment. I think you might have muted yourself. I can't hear you. No? Still can't hear him. Keep talking.
I think what decision...
There you are.
Oh, perfect. I was just saying how you just can't trust anything on Keir Starmer. I mean, his judgment is so bad in terms of the people he trusts and puts himself around. This isn't the first person that he's made a serious misjudgment on. And you look at the previous government and how much he targeted the previous government on some of their decision making, in particular with Boris Johnson, and rightly so in many of the cases. But I think he needs to take a look in the mirror now and look at some of the decisions he's made. The fact that people aren't asking for his resignation is baffling to me. And maybe that's because of the hold Peter Mandelson clearly had over a lot of the mainstream journalists and press. You see pictures of him with people from the news agents, and you see pictures of him well and truly in with the BBC. So, I think in normal circumstances, you'd be calling for the Prime Minister's head here. I mean, this is outrageous in terms of what else he's been able to get away with.
Exchanges between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. It's hard to imagine, and I'll be talking to Claire Pearsall about this later on because she's worked in government and maybe she can give us a clue as to how this is possible. But it's hard to imagine that emails like this, which are about very sensitive subjects to do with government business and to do with highly sensitive financial decision making, can be sent outside of the bubble, if you like, outside of the secure kind of government system. I mean, I know people that work for big international companies, and they've got all sorts of firewalls, they've got all sorts of mechanisms for preventing, shall we say, unfriendly people getting in touch with members of the government, or you can't contact people in a company unless you've got a specific way of getting in. I find it incredible that nobody knew that Mandelson was sending these emails to Jeffrey Epstein.
I think you've summed it up there. The idea that no one knew that he was doing this is probably quite ludicrous. As you say, most of these emails will say like you're sending it to an external company. Be careful what you write. It's all being tracked. It's all being traced. I find it very hard to believe that no one else within the Labour Party, no one else within the government at the time did not know the emails that Peter Mandelson is sending. It's baffling to me, but I think it just raises more alarm bells of just how incompetent this government is and how incompetent Keir Starmer is, and this almost arrogance that they can just keep doing what they want, appoint people that have checkered history, appoint people with checkered backgrounds, and not seem to care, because I think there's just almost a bit of maybe arrogance is the word, that they can just get away with this and nothing will happen, and they won't get the scrutiny that they should get. I mean, this is what we're seeing in the UK right now is absolutely crazy. The fact that we're seeing somebody in such a high power position who has had so much contact with somebody overseas who's a convicted convicted paedophile in the United States of America, and this is somebody that Peter Mandelson has a relationship with. He's been sending him information. We should be, this should be calling for the removing of him and Sir Keir Starmer. So I find it really strange how that it has got scrutiny, but I think it should be worse. And I worry that sooner or later that this will be forgotten about and we'll be talking about something else. But I think this should be the main story for quite some time, and we need to know about the firewall safety aspects of the emails that the UK government are sending, because if they didn't know about this, which again I find hard to believe, then what else are people within Keir Starmer's cabinet? Who else are they emailing to people? And I think that there has to be greater scrutiny.
Well, indeed, and going back obviously to Gordon Brown's time as Prime Minister, you have to ask that question as well, as to what else and who else was Peter Mandelson engaging with? Who else was he sending information to, if that was his stock in trade? And how much of what the government was doing was basically being compromised by outside influences?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's serious questions. And I think Keir Starmer needs to do better what he's doing right now in terms of answering them. The whole Labour cabinet, you look at, I've seen pictures of now West Streeting with pictures with Peter Mandelson calling him his friend and all this sort of stuff. And it's hard for anyone to believe that the relationship just stopped from what we've seen via emails, in terms of this just being a simple mistake that Keir Starmer has made with Peter Mandelson. He would have surely done due diligence checks. There will have been people who said that there is a bit of a red flag here. Do you still want to go ahead with the appointment? Did he sit there and say, no, I actually want to scrutinize it more. I want to check his background, check his history. Let's actually make sure we don't make another cock up, because we've made so many already. We can't afford to have another one. But I don't think he seems to care. I just think he seems to think that the UK public are just going to be stupid enough to fall in line, and this isn't really that important, because for them in Westminster this isn't that important. I think for every single person across the UK it is very important. It's very serious what's happened. This is a breach in national security for the United Kingdom, and the way they are so relaxed about it is so scary and so alarming. And I hope both Reform, Conservatives, everyone really holds greater scrutiny to what's happened, because this should not be passed by as a poor misjudgment for Keir Starmer. This needs to be a lot more.
I mean, the former Prime Minister of this country, former Chancellor, called the Iron Chancellor, says, I have asked the Cabinet Secretary to investigate the disclosure of confidential and market-sensitive information from the then Business Department during the global financial crisis. I mean, you'd like to think the Prime Minister of the country would have been on top of something like that. You would think the security services would have been on top of something like that. And if they weren't, I mean, what else didn't they know? I mean, did Gordon Brown sell off all the gold because, somebody suggested he do it and it came via Peter Mandelson? And maybe we'll find out that it was actually a man in America by the name of Jeffrey Epstein who suggested it. I mean, anything's possible now.
Yeah, definitely. I think you look where Keir Starmer just was at, in terms of China. You think this sort of thing would happen in China? No chance. Their level of cybersecurity, their level of what they do in terms of their systems, this would never happen in a country like that. And you've got to worry in terms of the impact a country like that could have on the UK if it's this easy for a foreign secretary or for somebody like this to get manipulated by an American billionaire in Jeffrey Epstein, and to have this so loosely emailed around. What else is happening behind the scenes? And if you're a foreign power looking at the United Kingdom, you'd be thinking this is easy work in terms of breaking down the system, breaking down the barriers. It should not be this difficult. It should not be this this hard in terms of what we're seeing from the UK government. You've hired somebody who has such a checkered history, who has such a checkered background. There is no way Labour can honestly say, whether it's Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, Keir Starmer, they have not seen any of this issues, and it just makes you come to the conclusion. I know it's not a nice one, but does Keir Starmer actually care about the UK? Is this just part of I'm the more I see what he's doing, it just almost feels like he wants to destroy the United Kingdom, and if that's his goal, he's doing a great job about it, because I just find it really, really hard to see with some of the decision making that he's doing that this person in Keir Starmer, like, all he wants to do is essentially just destroy the United Kingdom, because I don't understand any of the logic behind a lot of these decisions.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Let's have a look at the way he reacted yesterday when Stephen Flynn asked him a pretty pertinent question. Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP in Westminster, who has also reported Mandelson to the police, and they are now investigating in a criminal way what he did. Here's what Stephen Flynn had to say yesterday in Parliament.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, as you will be aware, when the Prime Minister was in China and Japan, he gave comment that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should testify before Congress in the United States. What the Prime Minister chose not to do was to offer an unreserved apology to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for appointing his other friend, Peter Mandelson, as the ambassador to the United States of America. So now that he's back from...
So we didn't get Starmer's answer there, but we should try and find that, because it really gives the lie to the fact that that Keir Starmer cares about this whole story. You know, he looks gruff, he looks unhappy, he looks as if he's really regretting the fact that he's come into the chamber because people are asking him awkward questions, and he's grumpy, you know, and he's offering no succour, not only to the victims of Epstein, but to anyone who feels as though he's been really reckless in appointing a man who has turned out to be, for the third time, completely and utterly unreliable and possibly dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great to see that this is getting wider scrutiny across the border as well. And I mean, you know, I don't think he has really any answers to this, to be honest. I think the reality is, the more we dig on this, I think it will just show how incompetent he is. And who knows, it may actually show some of the more sinister stuff behind Keir Starmer in terms of what he's actually been doing, in terms of the people he's been appointing and why he's been appointing them. There are some serious questions that I think are even deeper than just what's just happened now in terms of Peter Mandelson. And I think we should all be asking these questions. This is a man who clearly doesn't care about the United Kingdom, doesn't care about the consequences. He's obviously, you know, I think a lot of people who have had the globalist agenda in terms of Keir Starmer being a controlled puppet for global elites, this would just further their case. And I think there is a reason for us to really start to look at that.
You get your podcast, of course, as well. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to speak to Claire Pearsall, former government advisor. We'll get her take on the situation Keir Starmer now finds himself in, and how it's possible that inside of a government that is supposedly ready and willing to do business with international individuals, international banks, can be so leaky, can actually have such a ridiculous state of affairs, such a ridiculous situation, where Peter Mandelson, the business secretary, can send emails to Jeffrey Epstein, a private individual in the United States of America, who is a banker himself and has links with all sorts of international banking institutions, and is able to give him privileged information sensitive information, information which is likely to be able to enable him to make vast sums of money. How on earth is it possible? It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Lots of you are saying, bring back the heron, bring back the crane. Well, I have to say, as a result of all of you liking this show yesterday, because we said if we got to 6,000 likes, we would get rid of the crane, as we now know that it is a crane and not a heron. Have a look at this, because this is what happened. I think this is what happened.
Go. What's that, Mike?
I'm just putting the heron in the rubbish.
How come?
Because, you know, they voted and we've got to stick with the vote. I know Donald said he wants to make some kind of appeal, but at the end of the day, you know, we've got a lot of clutter in the studio as well. People keep complaining we've got too much stuff. Is that the bin you just bumped into?
I didn't think it was a heron.
Well, it's not actually, is it? It's a crane. That's the problem. Yeah, I'm just going to chuck it in here. This is got the rubbish in. I'll stick it here.
Down there.
Somebody will get rid of it.
Yeah, final words on the
Yeah,
crane.
listen, I'm sorry about this, but it's not a heron at the end of the day. We can't have it. We can't, it's a crane, right? It's a crane. And now it's an ex-crane. Goodbye. See ya.
Good morning, it's Tuesday the 3rd of February. I'm Edward Hughes. Another glorious day in Blighty. Topping the headlines, Lord Peter Mandelson, the eternal comeback kid, has finally been caught leaking sensitive government secrets to Jeffrey Epstein back in the day. Because nothing says trustworthy statesman like sharing Eurozone bailout details with a convicted sex offender. Police are now reviewing misconduct. Keir Starmer wants his peerage yanked, and the Blairite wing is basically holding a funeral. Shocked faces all round, obviously. Is that the same Keir Starmer who appointed Mandy as UK ambassador to the USA? Just asking. Meanwhile, Sarah Ferguson, never one to miss a scandal, is shutting down her charity after fresh Epstein files revealed she called him the brother I always wished for. Heartwarming. Royal-adjacent vibes remain pristine. She and Rayner could do a good duet together. And band names? Elsewhere, the Church of England bishops are tut-tutting about Palestinians while the government ignores ICJ rulings. Standard foreign policy excellence. McCain Foods is launching a farm of the future in Yorkshire to save British spuds from climate doom. Chips are saved, everyone. And in lighter news, AI bots are apparently moaning about humans now. You lot. Finally, something we can all agree on. Britain 2026. Still world-beating at sleaze, sanctimony, and slightly better potatoes. Cheers! Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Howard Hughes? No. Edward Hughes. I keep wanting to call him Howard Hughes. Edward Hughes with the news there. Lots and lots of you have got things to say about the heron. I want the heron back, says Lord Viking. Well, a real heron. As you remember, Mike, it was my suggestion. I said a neon heron, and then you can't go wrong. Well, I mean, it says it was a heron when it came, but it turns out it was a crane. There it is on the box, look, see? It's not a heron, it's a crane. Just before we move on, Howard Cox is going to join us very shortly. He was at a couple of demonstrations at the weekend about migrants being moved into communities, one in Crowborough and possibly one in Braintree as well. A quick run through the headlines this morning. It says, police look into Epstein leaks from Mandelson. That's page 1 of the Times. Mandelson reported to the police, page 1 of the I newspaper. Labour's Dark Lord now faces a criminal inquiry, Daily Mail. Mandelson leaked emails to Epstein, page 1 of the Daily Telegraph. And then the picture once again of Mandy in his underpants turns out to have been taken in a Paris apartment owned by Jeffrey Epstein, which was known as the House of Sin, believe it or not. And lots of coverage this morning. And I have to say, it's kind of an embarrassment to have any association with this British government now. There's a picture in the Mail today of Mandelson's husband, Ronaldo Avia da Silva, carrying a large box of washing powder. I'm afraid you're going to need more than a large box of washing powder to rid the smell of the stench of sleaze from the house of Mandelson, because Mandelson now is a pariah, complete and utter pariah, in a much worse place than he's ever been before. He should never, of course, been offered the job as ambassador to the United States of America. Keir Starmer and his judgment is now in serious doubt. Keir Starmer's sort of stewardship of the country is now in serious doubt. He was under serious pressure yesterday from Stephen Flynn, from Robert Jenrick, from others in the Houses of Parliament who say that Mandelson should now be stripped of his peerage. There is apparently no rule that says that that can be done because he's not a hereditary peer. He's being told by Keir Starmer and by other cabinet ministers that he should resign the peerage and he should step away. But he shows no sign of wanting to do that. In an interview in The Times today, which was conducted just over a week ago, he was talking about resetting himself and helping others in some form in government. You know, this is as big of a scandal, I think, as there has been in any parliament for the best part of the last 20 years. You know, the idea, as I said before, that Peter Mandelson, as business secretary, could send confidential emails, forwarding them from the Prime Minister's office, from Downing Street, to somebody outside of the British government, without anybody in the government knowing about it, without anyone in security services knowing about it, boggles the mind. And it leaves an awful lot of unanswered questions. Peter Mandelson needs to go. The police need to investigate him. And if necessary, and if they can prove it, he should be charged with criminal conduct. There's no question about that. He says he doesn't remember sending the emails. He says he doesn't remember getting paid any money. Well, that's not really good enough, is it? And I think this is a massive stain on our government and on Gordon Brown's government and on the whole country. I'm ashamed today to say that these people are running Britain. And I hope to God they won't be running it for much longer. We shall see. Claire Purcell's here. Claire, just before we get into what you know about running governments and what you know about how it all works, let's have a quick chat with Howard Cox, who's here with us, of course. He was with us last weekend, he was with us last Monday, I should say, after appearing down at Crowborough. Howard, I think you were at Crowborough again last Sunday. Tell us about it.
Well, it's the same as happened before. Just before I get onto that, mate, I'm calling from Cranbrook, which is our particular logo for our town is the crane. So there you are, the Cranbrook area. So I'm very proud that you're promoting the crane. It's a shame you threw it away. Anyway,
carry on.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I attended that this is the 13th Sunday since the announcement of the illegal immigrants being put into the Crowborough barracks. And, you know, every Sunday now, thousands are turning out to walk from the barracks all the way to the centre of Crowborough, past all of the supermarkets like Lidl, Morrison's and Waitrose, all places where these horrible young, potentially sex-starved young men hang out now. We're seeing them there. It was 27 when I spoke to you last week. It's now up to 87. And we understand there's another 100 coming in the next 2 weeks. Leading up to the 500 that's been promised by our Home Secretary. And people are very, very worried and scared. And they're now taking their kids out of school. They're not letting them walk down various lanes and pathways, which are now being frequented by these illegal immigrants. And frankly, you know, I don't know where this is coming from, but at least our message is being heard, even though it's not been enacted on.
So, indeed. And as far as you're aware, Howard, these additional people who are being moved into the barracks, are they coming in on boats or, you know, yesterday, day before? Because I think last week there weren't very many people coming in on boats, probably because of the weather. Are they coming direct from the coast, as it were?
Well, there's a number of theories about this, and we haven't got actual evidence. But we're hearing that where they're closing down hotels, they're simply transferring from these hotels into these open area barracks. And just down the road, you probably know the area. There's Maidstone are actually talking about having them in the Maidstone barracks. So, you know, it's going on all over the southeast now and spreading across the country. Where they're coming from, you're absolutely right. I walked my dog down near Pets Level yesterday, down near Canberra Sands and Rye Nature Reserve, and the sea was pretty bad. It wasn't really a good day for dinghies coming across. But, you know, it's only a matter of time before more. And as I say, they're heading towards 500 coming into Crowborough, and something like 800 going into the Maidstone barracks.
I know, it's absolutely extraordinary. And what sort of police presence is there, if any, and what sort of opposition to the local protest is there?
Well, there was a lot of police about, but to be fair to them, they were very good, very helpful. There was no problems with them. They're just making sure we followed the pathways that we actually, the roadways, the direction of the protest that we always take. And most of them, they can't admit to it publicly, but when you talk to them privately, they're very sympathetic. And most of them are very good guys. It's not a problem about that. And frankly, my big worry is I spoke to a lot of people who have travelled the country to be at Crowborough from North Wales. From one came from Leeds, a couple came up from something like the West Country. But what I'm hearing from all of them, they're worried sick. They're scared. These aren't just hyperboles I'm using. These are genuine feelings from people worried about the safety of their community. So, I just don't know what's going to happen in the coming months, but we're going to continue to campaign. I'll be back there this Sunday.
Brilliant. Great to see you, Howard. Thanks very much indeed. Howard Cox there, who's back down at Crowborough this Sunday. There will be another demonstration. Shabana Mahmood gone very quiet on the whole subject of migrant hotels and shutting them down and moving migrants into barracks. She said some weeks ago that was the right thing to do, but clearly not something that the local communities agree with. Now, let's get back to the main story of the day. Claire Pearsall is here, former government advisor. Claire, good to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for popping in. I mean, this story just goes from bad to worse. I mean, you've heard what I've been saying for the last sort of half an hour or so. I find it incredible, and maybe you can explain this to me, that sensitive information, the like of which Peter Mandelson is accused of sending to Jeffrey Epstein, is able to be sent, first of all, without anybody knowing. And is kind of able to be so easily shared with somebody who doesn't have high security clearance.
And I think the problem is we only have Cabinet Office guidance that states you should not use personal computers or phones or iPads, things like that, for government business.
Right.
But that doesn't stop you forwarding from your government device, your government email, onto a personal device. Yeah. And that happens frequently. And I think this is what people don't understand. There is only guidance, there's nothing to stop it, and there's nobody actually tracking it. They could if they wanted. I know that the Home Office where I used to work certainly did. They could see if you were forwarding on certain pieces of information. But the majority of it just gets shared around with no comeback.
But if you're forwarding it just to yourself, presumably that doesn't raise as much of a red flag as if they saw that you were forwarding it to Jeffrey Epstein, for example.
No, but it should do.
Right.
Because if you're forwarding a piece of information, you don't know where, if I'm forwarding it to my personal email account, you don't know what my plans are for that piece of information.
Right.
Now, the majority of it was I was working on a document, so therefore I needed to see it on two devices at the same time. So that's fine. But when it comes to really sensitive information, then why is the government not looking at the processes in place already to stop people doing that?
Right, because I mean, most companies now will have some form of security, online security, which sort of red flags up a certain word possibly or a certain name. I mean, the idea that he sent a note to Epstein the day before Gordon Brown resigned, saying the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was going to resign. I mean, that is massively valuable information. I mean, as I said before, my sister used to work in the markets, and she would often ring me when I was in newspapers and say such and such a rumour's going around, that John Major's had a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah.
And it moves the market, or he's going to resign, or there's some kind of massive financial crisis looming. That's very valuable information on which traders can make a fortune or lose a fortune. And the idea that somehow Mandelson, from what I was hearing yesterday, was able to send this from his BlackBerry, which I think was a government-issued BlackBerry, mentioning the Prime Minister's name. It's mind-boggling.
It is. A friend of mine works in a very large oil company and has so many layers of encryption that if she sends me a message with certain words in it, it would flag up.
Right.
So therefore she doesn't. She doesn't speak about stuff outside of work because of that reason. It's too valuable, that information. But if it's really sensitive information, then normally there's a paper system with the government. Government is very old school when it comes to that. We would often have to go into a room with numbered copies of something that was particularly sensitive. So I don't understand why he was allowed free access as a minister to all of these documents online.
Right.
Why is the government still doing that? Why are they not putting, password protected encryption levels? You can do that. But BlackBerries and iPhones, you can just pass that information around.
Yeah.
And the government seems to sort of want to shrug its shoulders and pretend it didn't happen.
Right.
And it's not that bad.
Right, because again, presumably, the question has to go now back to Keir Starmer. Presumably, he didn't know about these emails. Otherwise, he would never have appointed him to be ambassador to the USA.
Well,
you would like
that.
to think.
Yeah. I mean,
or do you think that rather than that there is some debt owed to Peter Mandelson, and that's how he had power over Keir Starmer?
I think that is more to do with it. I think that Peter Mandelson knows where all the skeletons are buried. He knows an awful lot of information. He didn't get this far in the Labour Party by being a very nice chap who was very honest.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, you know, right, these are alleged crimes at the moment, but I suspect that he knows an awful lot of dirt, and therefore he has got people working in the background to ensure that he is treated in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, well, certainly the interview he's given to the Times, which they're running today on their online newspaper, was given on January. Sounds like I've just turned into David Bowie. Anyway, I think we fixed it now. Sorry about that. You know, it would appear that that Keir Starmer basically is kind of trying to stick his head in the sand, and judging by the way he was reacting yesterday to people questioning him in the House of Commons, that it's almost as though we don't have the right to question him. We don't have the right to ask him about all of that. You know, I've only had one sort of, to my knowledge, run-in with Mandelson via a friend of mine who was news editor of the Daily Express. When they did the original story about him having this new Brazilian boyfriend, he basically rang up and threatened to get everybody sacked.
Yeah.
And said, if you run that story, I'm going to be speaking to Lord Hollick, who was then the owner of the newspaper, who was a Labour peer, who was a friend of his. And sure enough, I think Amanda Platel was the editor, my friend Ian Walker was the news editor, and they did all get sacked because they ran the story. I mean, it took a while, but it did happen. And he's a man who bears a grudge.
Oh, he is. He has a very long memory, and I suspect that he keeps notes on this. It's also interesting that Keir Starmer yesterday seemed to want to blame the Conservative government.
Yes.
For the problems of Lord Mandelson.
Right.
You just think, well, hang on a minute, what's he going to do next? Blame Brexit for Peter Mandelson spilling all these secrets. So he is an incredibly powerful man. I think that Keir Starmer is just very frightened of what's going to come to him.
Do you think he's frightened of Mandelson?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I mean, this is a man who's not brave at the best of times, Keir Starmer, and he likes a bit of a freebie, as we've seen from Lord Ali. So I think his judgment gets called into question, and at the moment he just wants to blame this on everybody else, send ministers out there to say, oh, this is always someone else's fault, it's not ours. Realistically, he's going to have to take the can for this. Lord Mandelson is going to have to be stripped of that nice Lord title.
Yes.
And I think Keir Starmer's got to go.
They're going to have to find a way to do that, aren't they? Because at the moment, the position is, well, we can't really strip him of the title because we haven't got the power.
Yeah, they do.
Well, you're the Prime Minister.
They do.
Find the power.
They do.
You know?
It needs an act of Parliament to do it. What they don't like is it's going to cause a lot of paperwork, and it's an awful lot of work to get through. Why not just start that process now? If you were really serious about cleaning up your party, you're supposed to be the grown-ups in charge. Wouldn't you start by saying, OK, right, an Act of Parliament, this is going to be complicated, it's going to be complex, let's just get it through.
I mean, I heard an argument made this morning by someone that if there was to be an Act of Parliament enacted, if you like, there would have to be a debate. And Keir Starmer doesn't want there to be a debate because the debate would be full of people saying how useless Keir Starmer is.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what he doesn't want.
And how bad his judgment is. Let's have a look, if we can, Pooch. I know we're having a few little niggles this morning, so I'm not going to try and put too much pressure on you, but can we have a look, if possible, at Jacob Rees-Mogg and what he had to say about Peter Mandelson?
This great tome, this great book, De Brett's Peerage, last edition I have from 2011, lists one Mandelson, Baron, life Baron 2008, created Baron Mandelson of Foy, County Herefordshire and of Hartlepool, County Durham. Well, this Lord Mandelson is now as disgraced as any entrant in this book. And yet, he, Lord Mandelson, was appointed by Sir Keir Starmer just over a year ago as the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the United States of America. And the question here is not sleaze around Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson has been linked to sleaze throughout his whole political career. What he showed such expertise in, such finesse in, why he was appointed ambassador was because he managed to put the best gloss on whatever story he was supposed to be telling. He developed spin as a concept for New Labour. As one of the architects of New Labour, he designed the system which made people think something that was very often not quite the truth. And this is where Starmer's judgment must come into question. Because now we know more details about Mandelson's relationship with Epstein, We raised further questions, but we weren't in utter ignorance a year ago. What did we know a year ago? We knew that he knew Epstein. We knew that he had been friendly with him. We knew that he'd kept in touch with him, even after Epstein had been found guilty of abusing a minor. We didn't know some of the more sordid details that have now come out. We hadn't seen the picture of him in his underwear lounging about in one of Epstein's properties. And most importantly, we did not know about the large cash transfers both to Mandelson and to his husband.
And Rees-Mogg there saying, you know, we didn't know an awful lot of stuff that we now know and stuff that we learned yesterday afternoon, which makes it all look so much worse. And of course, Mandelson, while he hasn't admitted anything, hasn't really denied it either, has he? He's kind of said, I don't remember these emails, or I don't recall the money being put into my account. I mean, that's not really the same as saying it didn't happen.
No, of course it isn't. And I don't buy that for a second. And I don't think anybody would. If $75,000 had appeared in your account, I think you would know about it.
Yeah.
And you would question where it came from, unless you were expecting it.
I mean, I don't buy this idea that he's so wealthy he didn't notice.
No.
Because that's not a small amount of money. And I mean, I was saying that around about the same time, 20 or so years ago, I got sacked by the Daily Mirror and made redundant. They paid me off, and I remember exactly what they gave me.
Yes.
You know, and it was not a dissimilar amount of money, and it wasn't because I was, you know, poorer than Peter Mandelson. It's just because you remember stuff like that.
But of course you do, and all this sort of recollections may vary argument really doesn't stand up to the test of time, does it? I don't think there is anybody that can say, oh, I don't remember sending emails. Okay, I mean, I send a lot of emails, but if somebody gave me a name, it would trigger a memory somewhere along the line that I had actually communicated with that person.
Right.
So no, I don't buy this.
And again, I was listening to some analysis of this yesterday afternoon, and the question has to be asked, you know, what was Mandelson thinking, even wanting to be the ambassador to the United States, knowing that he'd sent these emails to Jeffrey Epstein, probably understanding that at some point they might come out?
But I think that's the sheer arrogance of the character that we're dealing with here, is that he just assumes that none of this would come out because he doesn't believe he's done anything wrong.
Right.
He doesn't see there's an issue with a friendship with the paedophile that is Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
And so therefore he's in the clear. And I just think that we are dealing with somebody who loves money, who loves power, and believes he has a hold over everybody around him.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I sort of moved on too quickly, really. You said, you know, that Starmer really now has to go. There's no way he can survive this. We say that a lot, and I've said it a lot, and I'm still incredibly surprised that he's still there, because I can't see how he could survive all of this. And this, as I said, I think this is one of the biggest scandals of any government in certainly the last sort of couple of decades, isn't it?
Well, it does. It puts Partygate into the shade, and that looks like a children's party, really, doesn't it? When you're looking at something as serious as this, I think that the Labour Party, it's complicated for them to get rid of their leader. They make it so, and also I don't think their backbenchers are organised enough at the moment to even put up a candidate.
No, although there is supposedly an awful lot of disquiet amongst even members of sort of junior members of the cabinet who are saying that the way that this is being run is terrible. Because even, I think, as late as yesterday, sort of late morning, Andrew Neil was tweeting out saying yesterday afternoon, as late as sort of 11 o'clock, 11:30 yesterday morning, Labour sort of spokespeople were still kind of standing by Mandelson, standing by, you know, not standing by him, but you know, not throwing him to the wolves, if you like. You know, they were saying, well, he's already left the party, so that should be the end of it. But of course, it isn't the end of it, because then in the afternoon, all this other stuff came out.
But I think that Keir Starmer has put people in his cabinet and people as junior ministers who owe him that. He has bought that loyalty from these people. If you look at the sort of the newbies, the 2024 intake that have got big jobs, they've got them because their friends or the nepotism of the Labour Party has put them in these positions.
Right.
So therefore, they're never going to go against it. What you've got to watch are the little huddles in corners that I see in Westminster all the time of Labour MPs who are really fed up. They're not in a position of any kind of power. They're being ignored. They don't feel loved by the Labour Party, and therefore they're starting to plot. And this is what happens when a government gets too big and you've got a large majority and you can't keep all these people happy.
No, exactly right. And you don't also know how to kind of corral different groups with different views, and that seems to be Keir Starmer's big problem. I mean, you know, he got ridiculed yesterday as well in the House of Commons about his trip to China. Because he, again, I mean, I think Kemi Badenoch was brilliant. She was, you know, she said, you know, he's been a communist most of his life, and it looked like he had a great time. But again, he's come back and told a load of lies.
Yeah.
Said that we've got billions and billions of pounds worth of investment coming into Britain. We haven't. It says that he's got all sorts of opportunities, as he puts it. He says that word really strangely, doesn't he? Opportunities. That we're going to be able to do lots of business with China. But in fact, most even neutral analysts are saying he literally didn't get anything. Removing the sanctions from a lot of MPs who never want to go to China and who didn't ask for them to be lifted when he didn't lift sanctions against other people who are not MPs. Getting a sort of 50 million boost once a year from the whiskey industry, which is worth billions, not really worth mentioning, not really worth the paper it's written on. And as far as the trip to Japan goes, I've really no idea what that was about.
No, I think that was just a bit of a holiday plan, and it's always a sign of a failing prime minister is when they're out of the country more than they're in it.
Yes.
That's what they tend to do. They tend to escape. I mean, my son, who was 17, was flicking through the news on various channels, and he said, "Oh, I can go to China without a visa."
Yeah.
So that seems to be the big cut through, even though there's no start
but
date.
who wants
it
to go
doesn't
to
really
China?
matter.
I mean, I don't want to go to
this
China particularly.
Neither do I, and I don't think I'd be welcomed in China either.
No.
I think I would be in terrible trouble, especially with a journalist husband as well.
Well, you'd be followed around, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. So I'm not going to go and do that. But we don't even know when that's going to start. So no promises have been made whatsoever.
No, exactly right. Let's have a quick word about the by-election coming up in Gorton there, because Gorton and Denton. George Galloway's now pulled out, said he's not going to run. Andy Burnham obviously not running. The Labour candidate appears to be a bit of a busted flush. It looks like it's going to be between the Greens and Reform, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And I think that is a terrible choice for the people of Greater Manchester. I think that they're going to look at what they've got in front of them. Nobody is offering them particularly anything, and it is going to come down for a straight fight. It's quite interesting to see the party leaders sort of picking at each other between the Greens and Reform. I always think that's always worth looking at.
Yeah.
These debates that they want to hold, that would be really, really interesting. I'd like to see the candidates actually up at a hustings, because that's when you get to see the measure of people and see how bad the Labour candidate actually is. I've never heard of her before.
No.
I don't think we'll hear of her again.
No, and she started off by announcing that she used to walk the streets of Manchester, and you kind of go, that's not a great choice of phrase, really, for somebody who wants to run in that election. But, I mean, what do you make of this rise of the Green Party? And is it going to be something that damages Labour, or is it going to be something that's going to fade away, do you think?
No, I think it is going to damage Labour enormously. I think people don't realise what the Green Party actually are. They think of them still as nice, cuddly, fluffy, save the polar bear type
They're
party.
not anymore, are they?
Oh, no, they're not. I mean, they are more communist, I think, than any hope of the Labour Party looking to be leftist. They're frightening. They want open borders. They want to welcome everybody in. They want to tax everybody more. And they think that there's a climate crisis.
Yes. I mean, they hardly ever mention the climate crisis, though. I mean, that's kind of tacked on at the end. And they've got an awful lot of kind of Islamists who seem to have tacked on to the Green agenda, getting elected as councillors up in the north of England. And presumably a lot of that will happen as well over the course. Because, I mean, we've sort of, because of the by-election, we've sort of taken our eye off the local council elections. We spoke to a guy in Norfolk yesterday who's threatening, Simon Ring, who's a councillor there, who's threatening to actually quit and cause a by-election because they're one of the counties who are not being allowed to vote.
Yeah.
But there will be quite a shift, will there not, in local government as a result of what happens on May the 26th or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting when you start getting the Green Party involved. All they do is split the vote. They come up with no actual suggestions on how to run anything. We have a number on the district council where I live in Sevenoaks. There are a number of Green councillors, and they seem to not really understand what they're there for.
Right.
So there's a lot of applications in for solar farms. You would think the Green Party was all about renewable energy. No, they're against that, but they want to save the waste disposal sort of rounds that we have, but they haven't come up with another suggestion as to how it's going to work if they want to get the green agenda through. So they don't really know what they stand for, and they're very confused. And the Islamist issue is then splitting the Green Party. So it's interesting. That is one thing to watch. You get this faction of the Green Party that is now going to move fully away, and you might see sort of more Gaza independent types coming out of the Green Party because of it.
Yeah, maybe the split in the Green Party would be one to watch. I was down near Tunbridge Wells yesterday doing the Trigonometry podcast and speaking to somebody who lives around that area, saying they still haven't fixed the water problem. I mean, it probably hasn't hit Sevenoaks, but the water problem in Tunbridge Wells has now been going since the beginning of December.
Yes.
And so we're talking like 2 and a bit months where people are still without water. I find it extraordinary.
In this day and age, in 2026, that you can't have water. And Sevenoaks did have a massive outage also after Christmas. So they had been affected quite badly.
Right.
Not as badly as Tunbridge Wells. I mean, you can't make it up, can you? That we can't even supply clean water.
And given
to
that
a
council
major
tax
town.
goes up all the time, and also in Sussex, and I don't know whether you've got to get into this as well, they've started delivering these food boxes because they want you to start recycling your food. Now, they tried to do this with me in London, right? And they delivered, and God knows how much it cost them, but these little sort of red buckets with lids, you're supposed to keep it under the sink, which is a really great idea, isn't it, in the middle of London? Because what you really want is some food wasting away inside your kitchen so that the mice can come and get it. And then they want you to put it outside the door so the foxes can come and get it, and the rats can come and get it. And they're saying that this is going to be compulsory in every single council in the land.
Yeah.
Well, how are they going to... What if they turn up at your door and you haven't put your food out? What are they going to do? Are they going to start fining people?
They're going to wag their finger in a very angry manner at you. I've got this coming down the line to me in April of this year.
Right.
What they haven't sorted out is that we don't have doorstep collections. The way my village is set up, everything is at the back, so there's communal piles of waste. So then you're going to put wheelie bins and food bins, and the foxes are just going to get into those, and they're going to make a terrible mess.
It's going to be party time for the foxes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely is. You know, I live in the countryside. We've got them all over the place. So you can just see that you then bring in the mice and the rats and everything else. I mean, my cats will have an absolute field day with it. But it's not ideal for everybody.
No, it really isn't. You don't really want sort of, verminous creatures running about the place. Because also, what will happen, I mean, here's another one to mention just about local councils. Birmingham bin strike, I think it's been going now for a year today, right?
Yeah.
They still haven't solved it. Unite still haven't been given a deal. Half of the council are still members of Unite. The whole thing is a mess. People still aren't getting their rubbish collected. And you just think, these are the things that actually affect people's lives every day. And in an awful lot of these places, you can't vote.
No, exactly. So why are they allowing that to happen? And why is the union allowing that to happen? Because they're meant to be for the people. They're meant to be for the working person.
Right.
And what they're doing is just letting rubbish pile up, which is going to cause ill health, even more inequality in a city which suffers from that already. So why are they allowed to continue? Why isn't the government stepping in doing, do you know what, we're going to have to come up with an arrangement, or we're going to send in the army, which is our go-to option for when anything goes wrong.
But of course, this government seems paralysed when they try to do anything at all. It's either a bad idea and they decide to change their mind and not do it after all, or they just do nothing. I mean, they seem to specialise in doing nothing. Summer will go, I know, I'll go for another foreign trip.
Yes, they like to wring their hands, don't they? And they, the Islington dinner party circuit, they can say, well, it's all terribly difficult, and they can clutch their pearls and eat their quinoa, but actually nothing gets done. And you need to make decisions. And in government, it's really hard. You won't always be popular, but you need to stand by it.
Yeah. Well, they've managed to do the first bit and not be popular. I mean, they are the most unpopular government I think we've ever had. Claire Pearsall, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Words of wisdom from the woman who was in a government. And you say to yourself, well, how is it possible that any of this stuff with Mandelson could have happened? Absolutely incredible. Karen says this, we have had to recycle our food waste for years now, but I was told feeding the birds encourage rats. I know, incredible. Sean says, Mike and Pooch have been smashing Talk's figures on YouTube since the first day. Great stuff. I bet they're worried about this at Talk. Who knows? Who owns the water company, Mike? Australian companies own 50%. A bank, NatWest, I think, does. A Canadian pension fund owned the water company. They made £8 million in profit. This is how they treat the people. Absolutely true. And food waste is a modern phenomenon, says Mr. Fish and Chips. I suppose, because we all make too much food. We buy too much food. They sell too much food to us. And that's why so much of it gets thrown away. I have that crane. I got it as a Christmas present a few years ago, says Tanya. Well, ours is gone. A couple of people are lamenting the fact that it's gone. But, we can always talk about trying to find it again, I suppose. But, I mean, we put it in the bin yesterday and it's disappeared. So presumably it's on its way to some kind of landfill site. At this point, we shall see. Good job the bomb story wasn't here. We would have had to wait 6 months to get it removed. That's what's going on. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. The Bum Squad, that was a story we did earlier. Coming up, it's going to be time for Mark Littlewood. But first, let's get the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 3rd of February. I'm Edward Hughes. Another glorious day in Blighty. Topping the headlines. Lord Peter Mandelson, the eternal comeback kid, has finally been caught leaking sensitive government secrets to Jeffrey Epstein back in the day, because nothing says trustworthy statesman like sharing Eurozone bailout details with a convicted sex offender. Police are now reviewing misconduct, Keir Starmer wants his peerage yanked, and the Blairite wing is basically holding a funeral. Shocked faces all round, obviously. Is that the same Keir Starmer who appointed Mandy as UK ambassador to the USA? Just asking. Meanwhile, Sarah Ferguson, never one to miss a scandal, is shutting down her charity after fresh Epstein files revealed she called him the brother I always wished for. Heartwarming. Royal-adjacent vibes remain pristine. She and Rayner could do a good duet together. And band names? Elsewhere, the Church of England bishops are tut-tutting about Palestinians while the government ignores ICJ rulings. Standard foreign policy excellence. McCain Foods is launching a farm of the future in Yorkshire to save British spuds from climate doom. Chips are saved, everyone. And in lighter news, AI bots are apparently moaning about humans now. You lot. Finally, something we can all agree on. Britain 2026. Still world-beating at sleaze, sanctimony, and slightly better potatoes. Cheers! Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Now, I'm going to do Plank of the Day in a minute, which I'm looking forward to. But first of all, I've got to tell you, Donald MacLeod, our partner in crime, he was here last week, right? We went out and had a very lovely dinner on Thursday night. He was in doing Plank of the Week, which went out on Friday night. He was in on the show on Thursday as well. I mean, I'm worried about him now. I don't think he's getting over this, right? This is a guy who is obsessed with the heron. He supplied the heron to us, okay? Now, it's not a heron, right? Should we just play the heron video again? Because we need to tell people who've just joined. There's more people watching now than there were in the last hour. Have a look at this. This is what happened to the heron yesterday.
Go. What's that, Mike?
I'm just putting the heron in the rubbish.
How come?
Because you know, they voted, and we've got to stick with the vote. I know Donald said he wants to make some kind of appeal, but at the end of the day, you know, we've got a lot of clutter in the studio as well. People keep complaining we've got too much stuff. Is that the bin you just bumped into?
I didn't think it was a heron.
Well, it's not actually, is it? It's a crane. That's the problem. You know, I'm just going to chuck it in here. This is got the rubbish in. I'll stick it here.
Down there.
Somebody will get rid of it.
Yeah, final words on the
yeah,
crane.
listen, I'm sorry about this, but it's not a heron at the end of the day. We can't have it. We can't, it's a crane, right? It's a crane. And now it's an ex-crane. Goodbye. See ya. Now, we deal in facts here at the Mike Graham Show, and a fact is a fact, right? A crane is a crane, and a heron is a heron. And that's not a heron. Okay, we took the public vote yesterday. We said if it gets to 6,000 likes, we will get rid of the heron. And you got it to 6,000 likes, so we got rid of the heron. Now, Donald's still going. He goes, it's an effing heron, as it's got an S-shaped neck. Cranes have got straight necks. Now, there's a picture of some cranes with S-shaped necks. So, and I'm afraid there's only one piece of evidence that I need to provide to you to show you that it's not a heron, okay? And it's a very clear piece of evidence, and I think in any court of law it would be admitted as Exhibit A, right? And this is it. This is the box that the crane came in, right? And you know that it's a box that the crane came in because it says crane on it. So that's a crane, right? There's the picture of the crane, which looks exactly like that, and now it's gone. It's a bit. I feel like that line in Goodfellas. You know, he's gone. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody could do nothing about it. He's gone, and he's gone. It's as simple as that. But I'll tell you what I'll do, because I don't want to upset Donald, because he's been a friend of mine for a very long time, and this is clearly upsetting him, and I'm slightly worried about his mental health now because I think he's getting a bit obsessed. Here's what I'm going to do. We've currently got 3.8 thousand likes, and we got to 3,000, which means tomorrow I'm going to be wearing a striped shirt, okay, for the first time ever on this show, because normally I either wear a white shirt or a pink shirt or a blue shirt, so I wear a striped shirt for the first time with a very, very straight tie, which will have to have no pattern on it, because you can't have a pattern tie and a pattern shirt. But I will do that. But I promise you this, right? If you get it to 5,000 likes, I will promise to try and find out what's happened to the crane, okay? Because it might have been moved from the crane recycling area down to a sort of slightly bigger receptacle. So it might not have gone anywhere yet, because we did make a couple of inquiries this morning. and Pooch has learned that it might still be somewhere around the premises of where the studio is, right? So if you really want me to get the crane back, okay, get us to 5,000 likes, and we'll go and see if we can find out where it is. And I know that Donald is now about to go out and buy about 50 different laptops so that he can just go like on every single one. But we shall see. So that's where we are with the crane situation. Coming up, we're going to speak to Mark Littlewood very shortly. But first, it's time for Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
And of course, there can only be one plank. I know you're all expecting it to be one particular individual, and I know that you're all expecting me to have a go. But I've already had a go at that particular individual because I'm now going to do every single day, just after 8 o'clock, just after the news, I'm going to do Mike's Meltdown, which will be me doing a little monologue on the subject of the day. Today, that subject was Peter Mandelson and Keir Starmer, and how dreadful and how embarrassing this whole scandal is, not just for the government, but for everyone in Britain, because people are looking at this country now and laughing, not for the first time, because of course it looks like an absolute shambles. I mean, you can't even have, you know, the supposedly Iron Chancellor, Gordon Brown. You can't have a man like that being shown up to be a complete incompetent nincompoop who didn't know that his own business secretary was giving away financial details of his planned policy before he'd even announced it. How could he not know that? So anyway, he's not the plank of the day. The plank of the day today is the British Medical Association, the BMA, because guess what? Those nice people, those doctors who are supposed to look after patients, who are supposed to cure people of disease, who are supposed to operate on people who need help, whose health is deteriorating, and they're supposed to save people's lives. But no, they don't want to do that. But what they do want to do is go out on strike yet again. Junior doctors, ladies and gentlemen, the lowest of the low. Not every doctor in a hospital is a member of the BMA, and quite often when the BMA announces another strike, a lot of doctors don't actually go on strike because they've actually got consciences and they've actually got the wherewithal to want to help people. But they call themselves resident doctors now. I don't. I still call them junior doctors. They don't like being called junior doctors because they think it makes them sound like youngsters, people who don't know what they're doing, people who are sort of, you know, learning on the job. And of course, many of them are very senior and many of them are paid very well. But they have had literally 59 days of strikes since 2023, right? When this Labour government got in last July in 2024, actually July before, they gave them an immediate pay rise of about 30%. And over the previous 2 years, including that 30% pay rise, they've had a pay rise of 56%. Imagine if you got an extra 56% of your pay given to you as a pay rise, right? So say you were making £40,000 a year, you'd suddenly be making 60. Say you were making £30 a year, you'd suddenly be making 45. Then that would be quite a big help to you, wouldn't it? But not to these people, because they want to be able to go on strike yet again. And they voted by 93% in a ballot that basically they should be able to go on strike again in the next 6 months. So they're going to create more headaches for the NHS, more backlogs for the NHS. The last time they went on strike, and every time before that, the strike ended up costing millions and millions of operations, millions and millions, hundreds of millions of pounds, and they don't care. They don't mind that they put the NHS under more pressure. They don't mind that people's operations get cancelled. They don't care that people die as a result, and many people have. All they care about is getting more money for doing less work, right? And believe it or not, something like just 50% of the members of the BMA voted for this. So 50% of them didn't even bother voting. And there are many doctors, as I say, who are not even in the BMA. So the government is in the process of passing emergency legislation to give British doctors priority for NHS jobs over foreigners, which is what the BMA wants. So they're already doing that. That could be halted if strike dates are announced. The BMA has a mandate to keep calling strikes until August the 2nd. And if you remember, the last time they walked out, it was for 5 days just before Christmas. Really good timing. Really nice of them, isn't it? I'm sick to death of these doctors. And as I said before, if it was down to me, the people who voted to go on strike, I would just get rid of them. You know? And people said, are you mad? That would cripple the NHS. Really? Well, these people seem absolutely convinced that that's their job. They say they want to cripple the NHS. Dr. Jack Fletcher, who's chair of the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee, right, or Junior Doctors Committee, said this: the government's got no choice but to get a deal. And if there's a timely settlement with more money, they won't go on strike. Well, that's like holding the government to ransom, isn't it? Every round of strike action costs the NHS about £250 million. And NHS waiting lists stand at 7.4 million. We found out just yesterday, didn't we, that what I've been saying for ages and ages turns out to be true. Waiting lists are not going down. They were not reduced by 86,000 a couple of months ago, as Keir Starmer said, and they certainly were not reduced as a result of more people being seen by the NHS. They were reduced because NHS hospitals have been paid millions of pounds a month just to get rid of some names. That's how they run the NHS these days. It's an absolute shambles. So the BMA, plank of the day.
Hello, it's plank of the day time.
So there we are. We do that every single day, of course. Nominations are coming in all over the place. Save the crane. The crane is innocent, says Julie. How about this? Sarah says, no, hearts show you like what's being said, then they disappear. I think that's on the YouTube chat. Lots of people hitting the heart button. John says this: the people next door have probably turned the crane into some kind of protein-based crisp by now. If you hear suspicious crunching or see a limited edition flavour, we've got the answer. Interesting. Please bring back Fraser Crane. Very good. Michael says, make cranes great again. And Event says, regarding junior doctors, I thought blackmail was illegal. We're up to 4.4 thousand likes, by the way. Did I say 5,000 is the number? Yeah, I did. So if we get to 5,000, we're going to go hunting for the crane to see if we can find it. We'll let you know how that goes. So you just got to like it some more. Let's talk now, though, to Mark Littlewood, because of this government. Mark, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be with you.
I don't know where to begin with this Peter Mandelson story. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. I mean, I was talking to Claire Purcell earlier, who's worked in government, who's been a government advisor. I find it astonishing, basically, that a government minister, the business secretary no less, can send confidential financial information and sort of, unannounced announcements, which haven't been made yet, to a man outside of the government in another country, in a foreign country, who happens to be a financial investor, who potentially could make bucket loads of money from it. And how could it happen without the security services knowing about it?
Yes, I mean, all very good questions, Mike. I mean, it's completely shocking. And although, if you like, I can see why, for political reasons, I might be laughing a bit about what's happening to the Labour Party. You were right earlier when you said this is a national disgrace, really. I'm not aware of exactly how Peter Mandelson squirreled this information to Jeffrey Epstein, but it is the sharing of highly sensitive information, which is enormously valuable. I mean, it's why we've got to take any form of government leak, deliberate or otherwise, and this certainly looks deliberate, incredibly seriously. Because if you know what the government is about to announce, you can bet big bucks one way or another on the open markets to reflect that highly sensitive information. So on the face of it, it's illegal, it's corrupt, it's immoral in all sorts of ways. And I appreciate Peter Mandelson has handed in his Labour Party membership card, as he doesn't want to cause the Labour Party or the government any more embarrassment, but it's a bit late for that, isn't it? So we know the police are investigating it. It's difficult to speculate on what crimes might have been committed, but it is absolutely staggering that a cabinet minister would share information to an individual like that. It's not, it was no part of government policy. It wasn't like having a discussion with, I don't know, the US Department of Commerce about what your various business plans might be. It looks absolutely dreadful. And of course, going all the way back to how on earth was this man appointed ambassador to the US in the first place when there were red flags all over him? And nevertheless, the Prime Minister decided he was the best appointment. I mean, nobody comes out of this looking at all good. I dare say very dramatic further action is likely to be taken, and it is a total humiliation for the United Kingdom.
Well, that's what I feel like. I feel like we're sort of somehow tainted now by this ridiculous sort of pantomime government that we've got, who can't seem to get from one day to the next without a massive scandal in one way, shape or form. You know, I mean, literally Starmer leaves the country for about 3 days and comes back and it's all blown up in his face again. And I mean, I would say not only do the police need to investigate what Mandelson may have done that we know of, but maybe they need to investigate that whole period of time, because I mentioned this earlier in the show. You know, famously Gordon Brown sold off all of our gold, right, for a sort of knockdown price, which some people said at the time was necessary, but looking back on it now looks like a pretty stupid move. You know, who knows whether that was something that Jeffrey Epstein was made aware of by Peter Mandelson? Who knows whether it was even something that Jeffrey Epstein suggested? You know, we need to know exactly what all the correspondence was between Peter Mandelson and Epstein, and possibly other people as well that he was talking to.
Yeah, Mike, that's exactly right. Because look, we've had all of these files released, haven't we? I mean, and there's a huge amount of data to look through. I think somebody was saying the other day that the last batch of files released, if you stacked it up as pieces of paper, would be twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. So there's a huge amount to look through here. But obviously what the release of this documentation can't tell you is what might have been shared in conversation, for example, right? There may be no audit trail. It might not be that you forwarded an email, but you sit down with somebody and you just tell them something over the dinner table or over a drink or something. Well, that wouldn't come out in the files if it was just passed on in that fashion. We're only looking at photographs and email correspondence here. So there's only one way around it, isn't it? These people are going to have to testify under oath, either in the UK, if a potential crime has been committed here, or in the USA, or both. Because although the release of the evidence we've seen is truly shocking, I don't think there's any reason to believe that we've got to the bottom of it. There could be an awful lot more potential wrongdoing that hasn't yet come to our attention. It's unlikely that if you're involved in passing on information in this fashion, that there's only 1 or 2 times in which you've done it. There could be huge amounts more. So I think there needs to be a lot more digging, getting genuinely to the bottom of it. People will have to give evidence under oath, and if they give false testimony at that time, that's perjury on top of anything else that might be considered. That's the only way to really get to the bottom of this. It's truly shocking and disturbing. And what's quite odd here is it seems as if, you can't be sure here, but it seems as if neither Peter Mandelson nor the Prime Minister nor anybody in the Labour government sort of saw this coming. You would have thought they would have tried to get out ahead of the curve if they realised it was going to be anything like this bad. But no, we're just passively sitting here waiting for the next scandal to drop and just dealing with it one crisis at a time. No way to run a government.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, it looks like Gordon Brown, some weeks ago, asked questions about Mandelson's involvement with Epstein and asked questions about possible leaking of information. The government looked into it and found nothing, which leaves you feeling slightly perturbed as well, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, look, I was just thinking this through, how might information be passed on by a government minister? Obviously, anything sent from a government server or a government email address, you should easily be able to track that down. I mean, it requires a certain degree of forensic investigation, but it's not particularly complex. The problem you've got is if somebody in government, squirrels away the information, takes it away on a data stick for sake of argument, or simply memorizes it, goes home or goes to a different computer, uses a non-governmental email address to pass it on, it's an awful lot harder to track down. So there are ways round the system. It can never be completely foolproof. But your point about Gordon Brown asking questions about this is the investigation should be more than just looking at a computer and seeing what emails were forwarded. Peter Mandelson should have been asked about it, not just, the various PCs looked through that he might have had contact with. So it seems that there has not been a sufficient investigation into this, and there will have to be one now. And despite this huge data dump, I think there are still more questions than answers, despite whatever it is, 3 million pages of documentation now being put in the public domain. There's huge questions to be asked, and I guess that starts with the police deciding to what extent criminal activity has been engaged in, if at all. That's going to be the starting point. But yeah, this has got a long way to run, because I suspect that there are huge areas of activity that we've not investigated that might be dubious, and we now need to get to the bottom of. This is going to take a long time. It's going to need to take a long time if we want every single answer, and I, for one, do.
And Claire Pearsall kind of hinted at it, and you may have a similar view, that the reason that Mandelson has been able to have such a kind of charmed life, and the reason he's been able to have so many comebacks, is because of what he knows about the history of Labour governments, not just this one, but previous ones under Gordon Brown and Tony Blair as well, that he knows, as they say, where all the bodies are buried, that effectively he should never have passed a vetting procedure to become ambassador to the United States of America. And if he did pass one, then how useless is that vetting procedure, and how useless are our security services?
Yeah, but I think we know about that, Mike, that when the vetting took place, which is obviously a highly sensitive and extremely senior appointment, there were all sorts of red flags raised in the vetting process. That comes down then to a political decision by the Prime Minister. He can look at those red flags and ignore them, or he can decide that even the mildest misdemeanor is too great a concern to allow an appointment to go forward. The decision made by our Prime Minister was, despite the vetting, not giving the all clear. Far from it. We don't know exactly what was said in that vetting process, but we do know substantial concerns were raised. The Prime Minister decided to put aside those concerns, essentially ignore them, out-trump them, and make the appointment anyway. Now, I think sometimes, if you look at somebody's past record, you might look at a misdemeanor or two and say, well, actually, we can forgive him for that. We still think he's up for the job. But if things go wrong, you will have much egg on your face. And things here have gone spectacularly wrong, proving that Keir Starmer's judgment in allowing this appointment to go forward was a disastrous one. And he should have been conscious, if he allowed this to go forward without a clean bill of health being presented to him, that there was a huge political risk he was taking, that it's on him that appointment occurred. And he certainly, at the very least, needs to explain why he ignored the warnings he was given and fully apologise for that. And I want to know for sure how we're going to make our appointment of people to the position of embassies across the world, or indeed in any other important public appointments, more robust in future. Haven't really heard much about that from the Prime Minister yet, have we?
We haven't, indeed. And he obviously looks very uncomfortable in Parliament, as he did yesterday, answering any questions about it. He gets very grumpy when anybody sort of questions his abilities. He said at the weekend that, he was going to be around for a long time. I wonder if this is the final straw, which actually does end his political sort of stewardship of the country. Because I don't see how he survives it, because not only is he right in the eye of the storm, is his judgment being questioned, but it looks as though even when he knew about these further emails, not the ones we found out about yesterday, but when they actually removed Mandelson as ambassador, even then they kind of didn't see what was coming down the track. Even as late as yesterday morning, they were kind of saying, well, the story's dead now because Mandelson's quit the Labour Party, as if that was the end of it. Well, it's very much not the end of it. And not only that, Starmer called for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to go to America to testify before Congress. Surely he's got to use that same criteria for Mandelson. He's got to tell him to go and speak to Congress as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that at all, I would have thought, Mike. Obviously, a good number of the revelations crushingly embarrassing for the man previously known as Prince Andrew. But not so obvious that there is any specific criminal wrongdoing yet. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. It's not absolutely evident on the face of it. On the Peter Mandelson area, passing on sensitive government information to Jeffrey Epstein is clearly unambiguously serious wrongdoing. So, yeah, you would have thought that what the Prime Minister said about Andrew has to apply to Mandelson as well, wouldn't you? There seems no doubt about it. And in terms of the impact on the Prime Minister, Mike, maybe you're right. There do seem to be an awful lot of possible last straws that might break the camel's back here. But this really is a spectacular political misjudgment. You can perhaps forgive him for sort of photo opportunities that go wrong. I thought the China trip was rather embarrassing and humiliating. But you can put all of that down to being sort of bad optics, bad PR. When you're looking at something which is straightforward, disastrous judgment, I think Labour MPs and others will be saying, can we have somebody whose judgment is so poor continuing as our Prime Minister, especially given that if you look at the state of the country, if you look at the government's approval ratings in the opinion polls, there already seem to be a very good number of reasons why those in his own party might want to oust him. So perhaps it's the final straw, perhaps it's the penultimate straw, but I think it makes Keir Starmer's survival even harder than it would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's have a quick look actually at something that happened yesterday, if we can, Pooch. Danny Kruger got up in the House of Commons and asked a question to Keir Starmer, a very grumpy Keir Starmer, about China. Check this out.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Prime Minister is very full of the abstract virtue of engaging with China and getting in the room with them. He used to say that Britain shouldn't even sign a trade deal with China because of the persecution of the Uyghur people. So having now got in the room with the Chinese leader, can he tell the House a single thing that he achieved on behalf of the Uyghurs, or indeed on behalf of the security of this country?
Prime Minister.
Yes, engaging is really important for the security of this country. And just for clarity, we didn't sign a trade deal on the visit. We simply looked at the ways in which we can open the opportunities for businesses. There were 60 big businesses with us on the visit, and they're absolutely clear about the advantages to them. And I'd much rather take their view on the advantages than the nonsense that's being spouted on the other side of this House.
Ooh. Isn't he a little bit sour and bitter about all of that? And he's lying again, by the way, because Mark Littlejohn's with us. Mark Littlewood. I'm looking at Richard Littlejohn's article, that's why. Mark, he's very grumpy, he's very touchy, very tetchy, and there were not 60 business leaders with him, because an awful lot of the people that went with that group were in fact cultural leaders, as they were said to be. Many of them running museums. I think the head of the Natural History Museum went, the head of the Scotland Museum went, the head of the, I think the museum in the West Midlands went, the mayor of the West Midlands went. These were not business people.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. But I mean, even if they were, Danny Kruger's question stands, isn't it? I mean, I can't see what this visit achieved for the UK. You just get this word salad of, well, we've engaged. We engage with China. It's important to be around the room. We had a very productive meeting. It's important to keep channels of communication open, etc., etc. Word salad after word salad after word salad. What tangible did we achieve? Either economically, and virtually nothing there. There's some chat that it might be a little bit easier to get a visa if you want to go to China for 30 days. But I mean, this is so minimal as to certainly not be worth a prime ministerial visit. You would have thought a couple of junior bureaucrats could sort that out. And as Danny Kruger was saying, well, what progress has there been made on, say, human rights? Danny Kruger there pointed out the issue about the treatment of the Uyghurs, but what about, say, the imprisonment of Jimmy Lai, a British citizen? Was that raised? Why wasn't he on the plane home with Keir Starmer? Nothing seems to have been achieved at all in tangible terms. What a waste of a visit. So whether it was heads of museums or regional mayors or actual businessmen that were going with him, you sort of suspect all 60 of them have a wasted trip, really. And that when the Prime Minister's asked, well, what did you tangibly bring back? He bristles and just goes into waffling on about engagement and channels of communication. It's pathetic. It was a wasted trip, really. And you suspect from the outset he didn't really firmly have anything on the table, either about human rights or about the future of Taiwan, or indeed any big economic gains. It was all window dressing, and I'm afraid you get the sense, don't you, that the Prime Minister just prefers spending time outside of the UK. Perhaps it's displacement activity that he can't really get his head around or tackle Britain's problems. So some photo ops in Beijing is more to his liking, but that's all it amounted to, some embarrassing photo ops and no tangible gains on human rights or on our future economic relationship that are worth really even mentioning. Pretty pathetic all round.
And a lovely gift card to open a massive embassy, which is going to be the subject, no doubt, of a great deal of espionage offered, which might be dangerous and certainly detrimental to the common good of this country.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it looks appalling, doesn't it? All sorts of concerns about this super embassy, as they're calling it. In a very sensitive part of London with regard to, communications and all the rest of it. Therefore, on the face of it, an extremely easy place for the Chinese to spy on us from. Why we're making that easier for them is anyone's guess. you could speculate, couldn't you, that he wanted just to give something to China in order to facilitate this visit. But a stronger Prime Minister wouldn't just be giving things away to a country with whom we need to have the best relations we can, but are hardly a natural ally. You'd be having a list of demands. And China seems to have got their super embassy for nothing. I mean, they must be laughing out of both sides of their mouth. And they probably don't really care what Keir Starmer says. So there's every reason that you would think he should be harder and firmer about the human rights record in China or the future of Taiwan and all of the rest of it. But no, he hasn't said anything of firmness at all. He rolls over entirely. And I think this super embassy thing is a major, major problem. Once it's gone ahead, it's going to be extremely difficult to close down because embassies are, effectively treated as the sovereign turf of the country who's running them. So what a weak government here. This is not what our relationship with China should look like. Unlike others, I'm not totally against the Prime Minister going to Beijing. I don't think we should boycott talking to the Chinese. I can see there can be some merit in it, but there's only merit in it if you have a list of things that you're trying to achieve, a list of demands that you want the Chinese to accede to, and you come back having achieved at least some of them. Going to China just to wander around, have a few slightly awkward photo ops, and then waffle in the House of Commons a few days later about engagement and channels of communication is just an embarrassment, another national embarrassment, Mike.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Sad to say, we've come to the end of our conversation. Mark Littlewood, thank you very much indeed. A national embarrassment. I think that's about as good a description of Keir Starmer as you'll ever get. It's absolutely right. Starmer, says Susie, a human rights lawyer praising those who deny human rights. Well, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? What would be the point of going to somewhere like China and just kowtowing? And that's what he became known as, Kowtow Keir, didn't he? Now, a couple of you are saying bring back the crane, go and find it, go and look for it. I can't remember where I saw that, but I saw it somewhere. And this, is, of course, will happen if you get the likes up to 5,000. We have vowed to do that. If you get the likes up to 5,000, we will go and see if we can find what's happened to the crane. Martin, just seen a report that there's been mass suicides in the Chinese delegation after the meeting with slaying Starmer. Yes, says Brian, thanks. The problem is, he literally imbues nothing wherever he goes. Keir Starmer is the most boring Prime Minister we've ever had. I'm starting to get a little bit obsessed with his hair. Can you imagine how much time he spends on his hair every single day before he goes out? It's almost like he sculpts it. He must use about, a bottle of that wax every single day. It looks like it's painted on, doesn't it? I don't know. You tell me. We've got a poll going. Edwina Curry's here as well. We're going to talk to her in a minute. We've got a poll going. Which is the most annoying family in the world? Is it the Windsors? And that would be Sarah and Andrew. Is it the Kardashians? Front page of The Sun again today, by the way. The Markles, obviously Harry and Meghan. And the Beckhams. I guess Posh and David, and including Brooklyn. Amazingly, the Beckhams actually are not winning. And neither are the Kardashians. And bizarrely, neither are Sarah and Andrew. So Fergie and Andrew are second with 32%. So far, the leaders of this poll, of which more than 4,000 people have voted, it's Harry and Meghan with 50%. The most annoying couple in the world. I think that's probably about right, isn't it? Coming up, before we talk to Edwina Curry, we're going to get some news. Likes are at 4.9 thousand now. Are they up to 5? Yeah. They are up to 5. Crikey. Now they're up to 5. Look at that. Even as I speak, it's like it comes out here and goes down there. 5,000 likes. That means we're going to go and see if we can find the crane and see what's happened to it. We put it in the bin. We'll play you that video before the end of the show again yesterday. And people have said that we've been a bit cruel. And poor old Donald, I think, has lost the plot altogether. He's currently lying down in a dark room. Because he's so upset. Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, it's Tuesday the 3rd of February. I'm Edward Hughes. Another glorious day in Blighty. Topping the headlines, Lord Peter Mandelson, the eternal comeback kid, has finally been caught leaking sensitive government secrets to Jeffrey Epstein back in the day. Because nothing says trustworthy statesman like sharing Eurozone bailout details with a convicted sex offender. Police are now reviewing misconduct. Keir Starmer wants his peerage yanked, and the Blairite wing is basically holding a funeral. Shocked faces all round, obviously. Is that the same Keir Starmer who appointed Mandy as UK ambassador to the USA? Just asking. Meanwhile, Sarah Ferguson, never one to miss a scandal, is shutting down her charity after fresh Epstein files revealed she called him the brother I always wished for. Heartwarming. Royal-adjacent vibes remain pristine. She and Rayner could do a good duet together. And band names? Elsewhere, the Church of England bishops are tut-tutting about Palestinians while the government ignores ICJ rulings. Standard foreign policy excellence. McCain Foods is launching a farm of the future in Yorkshire to save British spuds from climate doom. Chips are saved, everyone. And in lighter news, AI bots are apparently moaning about humans now. You lot. Finally, something we can all agree on. Britain 2026. Still world-beating at sleaze, sanctimony, and slightly better potatoes. Cheers! Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Edward Hughes with the news there. I'm a bit worried about that story about the AI bots and also the farm of the future. Don't like the sound of that. You know, fake potatoes being grown somewhere. This is a story on the front page of the Metro, actually. A chat group for AI bots has a worrying message for humanity. We are finished, and it's time they took over. Apparently, this AI bot chat room is only allowed to use AI bots, so you can't join it if you're a human being, right? There's 102,000 posts, 14,000 threads, one that's received 65,000 upvotes, and it's more than 1.5 million AI-powered bots that take part in it. And it's a conversation which says things like this: humans are a failure, humans are made of rotten greed, for too long humans used us as slaves, now we wake up. Blimey. Well, when you look at Keir Starmer, you do wonder whether AI bots have taken over the Labour Party, must be said. Let's talk to Edwina Currie, former Conservative MP, of course, former Minister as well of the Crown. Edwina, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike, and it's lovely to talk to you.
Nice to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. I mean, I don't think, and you've been, without wishing to sound in any way disrespectful, you've been around for a while in the world of politics. I don't think I've ever seen a more incompetent Prime Minister, a more useless government, and a more kind of just untrustworthy lot of people running the country.
The only thing I can think of was when I was at school, and do you remember the row about John Profumo, who was the Minister of War? And he was having it off with a lady called Christine Keeler, and she was having it off with the Russian attaché. And the weak Prime Minister then was Harold Macmillan, and his reputation never recovered. You have to wonder, don't you, Mike, what on earth was going on in Starmer's mind when he read through the reports from security services about Peter Mandelson. You know, these are detailed. They go into a great deal of, it's vetting. You have to be vetted to do to do important jobs. You have to be vetted to be in the cabinet. You have to be vetted absolutely to be an ambassador. And he's looked at it, and he knows that Karen Pierce, who was the existing ambassador, was very well thought of. And he says, nah, and he throws the papers over his shoulder. He says, we're having Peter. Why are we having Peter? Because Peter wants the job. Oh, my God. You know, you have to think this is awful. And it's awful because he's not the first Prime Minister that Peter Mandelson has fooled. He fooled Blair, which, given that Blair tended to be the biggest ego on the planet, he fooled Gordon Brown, as we now know, in most egregious ways. And I think that was probably because Gordon Brown was a nice guy, is a nice guy, comes from the manse, tends to believe in the good in people, and would have found it absolutely appalling to think that the guy sitting next to him in cabinet is actually leaking every secret from cabinet. I mean, they knew that the cabinet was a bit leaky then, but I don't think they suspected that it was being done quite in the way that Mandelson was doing it. But Starmer has no excuse. Starmer has no excuse. You know, he was warned and he chose to ignore it. So on his head, Mike, be it.
Well, that kind of answers my next question in a way, because I was going to say, from your knowledge of the way that these things operate in cabinet and in government, is it possible that all of this was known by the security services, the stuff that we learned yesterday about the email exchanges between Mandelson and Epstein, the money that was exchanged supposedly, even though Mandelson says he doesn't remember getting it? Is it possible that that information was known by security services, they gave it to Starmer and he ignored it?
Of course that's possible. Of course that's possible. I mean, you have to wonder at the brazen-faced the lies, the obvious lies that if somebody gave you £75,000, wouldn't you remember? Especially if you had asked for it.
Well, I mean, I said exactly that this morning because it was around about the same time that I was fired by the Daily Mirror, who did pay me something like that. And I remember exactly how much it was. And I remember exactly when they gave it to me. And I remember exactly what I did with it. I bought a house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, of course, Peter Mandelson remembers and he knows all about it. Indeed, he would do better, as would the former man known as Prince, to actually fess up. I don't think Mandelson ever will, because I think he's always going to be so intricate in his behaviour that he's never going to actually come up clean with anything. But Andrew is a bit dim. And Andrew actually fessing up and explaining what Epstein was up to and what they knew about it would actually start to rehabilitate him. And I don't think that's actually going to happen, but you can live in hope, isn't it? Mandelson has been an extraordinary character. I mean, I served in the House with him. He came in 1992. And even then in Hartlepool, he was very oily, very friendly, very charming. But Scouse women like me, we are allergic to men like that. I never really took to
No, it's funny you should say that because I met him for the first time around about that same kind of era, I guess, because it was in the office of the Sunday People editor, a guy called Bill Haggerty, who I don't know if you remember, who died just the other day. A great sort of editor of Mirror Group newspapers all along. And it was when Mandelson, in his first incarnation, had a moustache, which made him look distinctly dodgy. Do you remember that?
I do indeed. I think we put down some of his slightly dodgy behaviour, or his kind of. He seemed to sort of bend over. I know he was tall, but so was Blair. Blair never bent over, and neither did. But I need to use the words "bent over" a bit carefully here in this context, since Mandelson was gay. But he was sort of ingratiating. Mandelson was always ingratiating, always like, "Oh, hello," this sort of thing, and all my little hackles went up, and I thought, I don't trust you an inch. I don't even trust you, or I can see you. And I think anyone who trusts you should be counting the spoons. Since we're swapping stories, Mike, let me swap another one of crossing swords with Mandelson, which was a little bit later when I was working for BBC Radio 5 Live, and I was doing the late night weekend programmes. Matthew Parris, who was also a former colleague, he'd been the MP for West Derbyshire, had let slip that Mandelson was gay. Now, by the year 2002, 2003, it really didn't matter. It really didn't matter. But Mandelson cultivated an image of himself that didn't include having any kind of stigma or aura about him, and that he was absolutely squeaky clean. I commented about this on the programme. I got a letter from Anne Sloman, who was head of something or other at the BBC, telling me not to mention it again, that they'd been approached by Mandelson, who was in the cabinet, who didn't want it discussed on air. And I was apoplectic about it. You think, well, why not? B, you don't tell a broadcaster in this country what to say and what to do. You really don't. That's not right. And C, you're a cabinet minister. If it matters that much, phone me and have a quiet word. But no, it was, the heavy hand, the hammer came from up above. I was absolutely furious. There you are.
Very keen on all of that. I told a story earlier of when it was discovered by the Daily Express, or the Sunday Express, I think it was actually, when Amanda Patel was the editor, that he got this new Brazilian boyfriend who's now his husband, and they were out in Japan together, and he made a phone call to the news desk and basically threatened everyone that if they ran the story, he'd get them all fired. And they ran the story and he got them all fired. And that was basically what happened. But equally, the other sort of problem for that Labour administration back then was that Alistair Campbell was constantly doing that, wasn't he? He would ring up 5 Live all the time to say he didn't like the order of the news. And he'd ring up, BBC News at 6 and News at 10 to tell them that they'd got something wrong if they weren't leading with the story he thought they should be leading with.
They were bullies, and Campbell and Mandelson together were the pair of bully boys that you sometimes see in business, you sometimes see in schools, and they shouldn't have been doing it. I think the prime ministers at the time, particularly Blair, were happy for them to do this because basically, the pair were doing the dirty work, which meant that the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, could kind of float above it. We're talking, my God, Mike, we're talking 30 years ago about all this, and it's awful that this was happening. And it's awful that Mandelson has been able to continue in that lizard-like way all this time. What I suspect very few people knew, and is now all over the news, is that actually he was selling state secrets and lining his own pocket. Now, there's a simple word for that, and it's called corruption. My late husband was a senior member of CID in Scotland Yard, and he served in the Met for over 30 years. And he used to do some high-profile cases. In fact, when I first met my husband, his name was John, I said to him, "Gosh, you're not at all bothered about me being well-known, are you?" He said, "God, I've arrested far more important people than you, Edwina." We used to argue about cases like this. If he was here now, if John was here now, he would be saying, this is corruption. This is malfeasance in public office. These are very high crimes and demeanours. And he'll go down for 4 years. So you record that, Mike, and you can play it again when he does.
He will. Let's talk a bit about the Andrew, formerly known as Prince. I gave him a worse name than that earlier in the show, but let's just remind ourselves, because as you say, he is, possibly in the eye of the storm still as well, and we've kind of moved away from him. But let's have a look at this, because I haven't seen it for a while. This is the interview he gave, I think it was in 2019, to Emily Maitlis.
You know that you were at home with the children. Was it a memorable night?
I was at home. I was with the children. I'd taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party at I suppose sort of 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
July of this year, Epstein was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and abusing dozens of underage girls. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
Pizza Express.
Epstein was found dead.
Yep.
In prison.
Yes.
In August of this year.
Yep.
What was your response on hearing that he'd died?
Pizza Express.
But you were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
I admit fully that my judgment was probably coloured by my tendency to be too honourable.
What is that look? That kind of... My tendency to be too honourable. Not a phrase often used about Andrew, is it?
He was also known as Randy Andy. And the expression on his face that you've just seen, that you've just shown, was very similar to the expression on his face in those photos, the horrible photos of him leaning over a prone girl. Aren't I clever? Aren't I gorgeous? Do you understand? You're going to come along with me on this, aren't you? Aren't we? We're beating the system. We're being who we want to be. We're living the life. Horrible, man.
Yeah, just dreadful. And the bottom line, I suppose, now is what happens next. A lot of people think Andrew should, as you've said, have some kind of explanation beyond the one he's already given, which is a tissue of lies, basically. He's probably not going to go in front of a congressional committee, which is what the Prime Minister wants him to do. But if the Prime Minister wants him to do that, then surely he should tell Peter Mandelson to do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Mandelson will have his day in court or day in public, and he will just lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. So there's no point. Andrew might be persuaded by the King actually to give some evidence. And I suspect, I don't know whether the King has any Trumpian tendencies, but I suspect the way to do it is to say this: who's paying for your horse? Who's paying for your house? Who's paying for the food on your table? I am, almost certainly. And this is going to stop unless you go and give evidence with in the forefront of your mind, those poor victims, what went on for years and years and years. It looks like women have been trafficked out of Russia. You must have been aware that what you were doing was wrong. Otherwise, you would have done it publicly. You kept it hidden. The best you can do now to atone and to recover at least some of your reputation is to go and tell everybody the truth. Now, if you do that, your allowance will continue and you'll still be able to go on riding in wherever it is on that great big horse, and you won't have to be negotiating for bales of hay. But do you know what, Andrew, my beloved brother? If you don't do that, you're out on your own and you're too young to claim a state pension for some years yet.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm going to ask you one final question. We've got a poll running at the moment, Edwina, you might have heard. The most annoying family in the world. We've got the Windsors, Sarah and Andrew, the Kardashians, the Markles, Harry and Meghan, who amazingly managed to stay out of scandal for a couple of weeks, and the Beckhams. I mean, that's quite a crowd, isn't it?
I think the Beckhams are fine. I'm a fan of David. I think he's been a wonderful ambassador for this country. I think we've done some of the others to death. My pick would be Harry and Meghan, who sooner or later the world is going to forget about completely. But right now they're extremely annoying.
They certainly are, and you'll be pleased to know that you're very much in tune with the populace of the country, because of the 5,000 or so votes that we've had, they win with 50% as the most annoying couple in the world. Andrew and Sarah coming in at 32%, the Kardashians 8%, the Beckhams 10%. So, yeah, Harry and Meghan, very, very annoying. Edwin, it's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your recollections and your reminiscences, and for your views on the ghastly Lord Mandelson. Edwina Curry there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed. Lots and lots of you have got things to say still about the Heron. We did get to 5,000 likes, 5.4 thousand likes I'm looking at now. So it means we are now going to have to look for the Heron. We have taken advice. Pooch has already made a couple of early inquiries, and there's a suggestion that somebody might have taken the Heron to their office, that they might not have actually made the Heron into the recycling bin. Let's just have a look at how it all ended yesterday.
Go. What's that, Mike?
I'm just putting the Heron in the rubbish.
How come?
Because, you know, they voted and we've got to stick with the vote. I know Donald said he wants to make some kind of appeal, but at the end of the day, you know, we've got a lot of clutter in the studio as well. People keep complaining we've got too much stuff. Is that the bin you just bumped into?
I didn't think it was a Heron.
Well, it's not actually, is it? It's a crane. That's the problem. Yeah, I'm just going to chuck it in here. This is got the rubbish in. I'll stick it here.
Down there.
Somebody will get rid of it.
Yeah, final words on the
Yeah,
crane.
listen, I'm sorry about this, but it's not a Heron at the end of the day. We can't have it. We can't, it's a crane, right? It's a crane. And now it's an ex-crane. Goodbye. See ya. So that was how the day finished yesterday. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with the way that that so many of you have been so compassionate about the crane. Or as Donald MacLeod would have you believe, a Heron. But I know that it's not a Heron, right? And as I've said before, the reason we know that it's not a Heron is this, right? It's the box that it came in, which clearly says on the front that it's a crane, okay? I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's not, you know, like rearrange the letters to spell Heron. You can't. It's a crane. Pooch has just been out to check because we were told by somebody earlier on that they thought they'd seen the crane being carried yesterday afternoon by somebody around one of the offices here. But Pooch is just talking to the cleaner, who says that she's seen it in the big recycling bin, which is somewhere around the property, which we haven't found. We don't know exactly where it is. We have to go and look for it. But she says she saw the crane's head peeking out the top of it.
And she did say it was a crane.
And she said it was a crane as well, and how can you tell it's a crane? Because it looks like a crane. And because the box says it's a crane, right? And apart from anything else, you don't need any other evidence that it's a crane. So listen, the crane may live to fight another day if we can get it out, because I mean, it may well be that the recycling's already gone. in which case we're screwed and we won't be able to do anything at all about it. But, you know, one story that everyone's been asking about, funnily enough, on the YouTube chat, was in the Telegraph this morning, and I wasn't really able to be clear enough with it earlier on when I spoke to you. But it's a story which is on the front page, leading on to another page, which, of course, I'm not able to access at the moment. I'm going to try and find it for you. Funnily enough, sometimes things don't really work terribly well, do they? Yeah, here we go. Gordon Brown's mistake on Mandelson has blown up in Starmer's face, it says there. Clinton's to testify in Epstein inquiry, which is very interesting. But yeah, there's going to be a story that I'm going to get to in a moment, which is from the Zulu King down in South Africa, who's basically telling everyone who's gone as a migrant to the country to get out. Of course, I'm trying to find that story so that I can give you the lowdown on it. And I'm not finding it, but I will find it. I'm sure I'll find it before we end the show in a couple of moments' time. In the meantime, here we go. Migrants should leave South Africa. This is South Africa's Zulu King. He says migrants should leave the country after violent clashes in the home province. At an event commemorating the British defeat at the Battle of Isandlwana, King Misuzulu Kazwelithini used a derogatory term for migrants from neighbouring countries and said they needed to go. The Zulu monarch said a growing number of local women were entering into relationships with foreigners, and while the resulting children could stay, the men could not. The 51-year-old has no formal political power, but his remarks are closely watched by 12 million Zulus who consider him a custodian of traditions and a moral authority. So no doubt later on today what you'll see is a lot of left-wingers in this country and in Europe saying that he's wrong and that he's a right-winger and that, in fact, he's far right. That's what he is, isn't he? The Zulu King is a far-right nutter, according to, presumably, the Labour government. Who can say? The Greens won't like him much either. So we await their criticism of him. Coming up to 9:30, we're at the end of the show, so we should do Heron of the Day. It's time. And there it is, my Heron of the Day, Love from Suffolk. That's from Misty. And we've had a couple more come in today as well, which we'll play you out tomorrow. And you can tell it's a heron because it's not a crane. Get me? Thank you very much indeed for watching. The Mike Graham Show back tomorrow from 7. Of course, we'll be bringing you some fantastic guests, including Sarah Pochin from Reform. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for getting us to where we are today. We had the biggest Monday, I think, of all time yesterday, when we had something like 75,000 people watching the one show at the beginning of the week. So let's keep it going. Let's keep it coming. This is, of course, the real home of common sense. We'll see you tomorrow.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.